I was halfway out of my coat when Claire pointed past me toward the brass rack in the corner. "You can help until dinner starts." For a second, I thought she was making one of those dry little jokes of hers, the kind where her face stayed serious and everyone else had to decide whether to laugh. I smiled and waited for the smile back. It didn't come. Behind the rack stood a folding table, a roll of paper claim tickets, and a small wooden sign that said "Coat Check" in gold letters. The alcove was just far enough from the ballroom entrance to keep whoever stood there out of the photographs. "I'm sorry," I said. "The girl they sent hasn't shown up." Claire pushed a loose strand of hair toward the lacquered architecture pinned above her neck. "People are putting coats everywhere." Then Nathan came through the front doors, saw his new wife pointing and his mother holding her good wool coat, and understood the situation immediately. "Please, Mom," he said, "just until everyone's inside." That was when I knew one of us was going to remember his wedding very differently. The reception was at a restored lodge overlooking Lake Carlton, 40 minutes outside Pittsburgh. Everything was stone fireplaces, dark beams, and windows tall enough to make the gray November water look intentional. Claire had rejected 3 hotels before finding it because, in her words, she wanted somewhere warm but not rustic, elevated but not fussy. I had told her that sounded like a very well-dressed barn. She had stared at me for half a second before Nathan laughed, and then she laughed too. That was how most humor worked around Claire. It needed a reference from someone she trusted. Now she stood in front of me in a fitted ivory gown with tiny covered buttons down the back, looking less like a bride than a woman, trying to keep an aircraft in the air through concentration alone. "The manager is calling the staffing company," she said. "It's only for a few minutes." "Where's the manager?" "Dealing with the candles." I looked toward the ballroom. Through the open doors, I could see waiters moving between tables dressed in cream linen. Hundreds of little flames floated inside glass cylinders, though apparently not in the correct quantities or locations. I had spent 6 months hearing about those candles. There were supposed to be 3 heights on every table, staggered naturally. Claire had once sent me 7 photographs asking whether one arrangement looked organic and another looked careless. I had answered honestly that both looked like candles. That had been before I learned honesty could create a 40-minute phone call. A couple came in behind me, bringing a burst of cold air and the smell of wet leaves. The woman wore a silver wrap over one arm. She glanced from me to the empty rack. "Is this where we leave things?" Claire's face brightened with relief. "Yes, Evelyn will take care of you." She said my name as though that settled what I was. The woman handed me the wrap. Her husband gave me a damp overcoat heavy enough to contain a second husband. By the time I wrestled it onto a hanger, Claire had already turned away. "Claire," I called. She looked back, walking backward in her wedding dress. "The family pictures. We're doing the wedding party first." She made a soothing motion with both hands. "We'll come get you." Nathan was still beside her. He had changed out of the expression he wore when he asked me for help and into the pleasant, alert face he had been wearing all day. It was the face of a man greeting people at his own wedding while mentally checking for smoke. "I'll come get you," he said. There was a difference between what he said and what Claire said. At least I thought there was. I laid my coat beneath the table, careful not to crush the folded pages in my purse. My dress was midnight blue, with a soft drape at the waist and sleeves that made my arms look better than they had any right to at 64. Nathan had helped me choose it. Claire had been busy that Saturday, so he met me at a department store and sat outside the fitting room holding 3 dresses across his knees. When I stepped out in the blue one, he looked up from his phone and said, "That one. You look like yourself, but expensive. You say the sweetest things. You know what I mean. I had. That was the trouble with Nathan. Most of my life, I knew what he meant even when he said it badly." Guests began arriving in clusters. The ceremony had been held in a small chapel farther up the road, and people had been told to allow 20 minutes to reach the lodge. Claire's schedule allowed 12. I knew that because I had printed the schedule. placed copies in the welcome bags, and driven 2 bags back to the hotel after Claire discovered I had put sparkling water in rooms intended for people who preferred still. "Your aunt says bubbles give her indigestion," she had told me. "Then your aunt has survived a very dangerous world." Nathan had covered his mouth to hide a laugh. Claire had not. At the coat rack, I developed a system. Dark coats to the left, lighter coats to the right, wraps folded along the shelf. The claim tickets came in pairs, and once I found a pen that worked, I started handing the numbered halves to guests. Most people recognized me. Some paused, confused. "Evelyn." Nathan's college roommate, Paul, said, "What are you doing back there?" "Launching my second career." He grinned. "Management, upper management. I have a table." Paul leaned closer. "Do I tip now or when I pick it up? I'm adding a service charge to Nathan's inheritance." That made him laugh, which made it easier for both of us. He handed over his coat and moved inside with his wife. I watched him glance back once, the grin gone. One man in a red tie dropped his gloves on the table and said, "Put those in the pockets, would you?" I looked at the gloves, then at him. He was already gone. I put them in his pocket because I didn't want to spend the evening looking at them. Every few minutes, I checked the ballroom doors for Nathan. I saw Claire once moving quickly with her maid of honor, Miranda. Miranda was carrying Claire's bouquet, a makeup bag, 2 phones, and what looked like half a sandwich wrapped in a napkin. She caught my eye. Her steps slowed. "Oh," she said. Claire kept walking. Miranda looked at the coat rack, then at me. "Are you, apparently?" Her face did something complicated. Miranda was one of the few people close to Claire who did not seem afraid of disappointing her. She was broad-shouldered, direct, and usually had the expression of someone watching a stranger back into a parking space. "I can get someone," she said. "Claire is getting someone." Miranda looked down the corridor where Claire had disappeared. "Right," she said. Then she placed half the sandwich on my table. "Turkey, no mustard. I didn't order room service. You also didn't eat after the ceremony." Before I could answer, she followed Claire into the ballroom. I stared at the sandwich. In 6 months of wedding preparations, Miranda had asked me to do exactly one thing. Tell her which side of the family Nathan's uncle belonged to, so she would stop calling him Claire's uncle. She had thanked me and written it down. I took one bite of the sandwich between guests. It was dry, but I loved her a little for it. At 4:20, a photographer in black came through the entrance and nearly collided with a woman removing a fur stole. "Immediate family outside in 5, he announced to no one in particular. "We're losing the light." I hung the stole and looked toward him. "I'm Nathan's mother." He consulted the tablet in his hand. "Great. Groom's side is assembling by the terrace. I'm covering coat check until my son comes for me." The photographer looked from me to the growing rack. "I can tell them you're here." "Thank you." He hurried away. I watched his black shirt vanish through the doors. 5 minutes passed, then 10. The entrance slowed. The last chapel guests came in pink-cheeked from the cold, complaining cheerfully about the narrow road and the man directing traffic with a flashlight. I had collected 58 coats, 11 wraps, 3 umbrellas, 1 hat box, and a tote bag a woman insisted contained nothing valuable while holding it as though it contained her original heart. I heard laughter outside. The lodge had a side terrace that wrapped toward the lake. From my alcove, I could see a narrow piece of it through the entry windows. Men in dark suits moved against the pale sky. Women lifted their skirts away from the damp stone. The photographer called directions. "Parents in closer. Closer, please. Claire, turn your shoulder toward Nathan." I waited for someone to open the door and wave me out. Instead, Claire's mother, Diane, appeared in the glass. She wore a beaded champagne-colored gown and a silver shawl I had helped her choose after Claire called me from the boutique in a panic. Diane claimed she did not photograph well in beige. Claire claimed champagne was not beige. They had asked me to settle it as though I were the Supreme Court of pale fabric. Diane stepped into place beside Claire and lifted her chin. Claire's father joined them. Nathan stood on Claire's other side, smiling at something the photographer said. There was an open space beside him. He looked toward the lodge. Even through the glass, I could tell he had seen me. Our eyes met for less than a second. The photographer raised his camera. Nathan turned back. A woman approached the table carrying a long camel coat over both arms. She was probably in her late 70s, with white hair cut sharply at her jaw and a cane hooked over one wrist. "Careful with this," she said. "It's cashmere. I'll guard it with my life." She studied my face as I placed it on a hanger. "Do I know you?" "I don't think so." "No, I do." Her eyes narrowed. "You were at the church, front row." I reached for a claim ticket. I moved fast. "You're the groom's mother." There are moments when lying would be childish and telling the truth feels worse. "Yes," I said. She looked past me at the rack, then toward the terrace, where the camera flashed again. "Why are you checking coats?" "The attendant is late." That was not an answer, and we both knew it. The woman took the claim ticket but did not move. "And no one else in this building can hang a coat?" I smiled because it was still my son's wedding, because the candles were burning, because my toast was folded in my purse beneath the table, because Nathan had said he would come back. "He's coming to get me," I said. Outside, the photographer called for one more picture. The woman looked through the glass. "So he is," she said quietly. The woman kept looking at me with the steady, unembarrassed attention older women sometimes give one another when they have decided politeness is no longer the most useful thing available. "Do you need me to say something?" she asked. "No, I'm very good at saying something. I can tell." One corner of her mouth moved. "My name is Frances, Evelyn." "I know." Of course she did. My name was printed in the program, although my current position had not been. Frances tucked her claim ticket into a silver evening bag. "I'm an old friend of Diane's. That means I've spent 37 years being told things are fine when Diane prefers them quiet. This has nothing to do with Diane." She looked out at the terrace again. Everything in Diane's vicinity has something to do with Diane. A new group entered, and Frances stepped aside. She did not go into the ballroom. She stood near a stone column, leaning lightly on her cane while I took 4 more coats. I could feel her presence without looking at her, which was irritating and strangely comforting. When the group moved on, I said, "You're going to miss the cocktail hour. I've attended cocktails before. So have I. Some were worth repeating. Not with this hip." The terrace door opened, and the wedding party poured inside in a gust of perfume, damp air, and relieved complaining. Miranda hurried in first, still carrying Claire's bouquet and both phones. "We need to warm up the parents," she said to the photographer. Diane's lips are turning blue. "I told them 5 minutes. You told a wedding party 5 minutes. That was your first mistake." Claire entered behind them with Nathan's hand under her elbow. Her gown had collected a dark crescent of moisture along the hem. Diane followed, rubbing her arms, while her husband, Richard, asked no one in particular where the bourbon was. Nathan's eyes moved toward the coat alcove. I straightened. Claire said something to him. I couldn't hear it. She touched the front of his jacket and brushed away a speck that may or may not have existed. The photographer called for the wedding party near the fireplace. Nathan glanced at me again. This time, he raised one finger. 1 minute. Then he followed his wife. Frances made a sound through her nose. "Don't," I said. I didn't speak. "You were eloquent." She smiled, then walked toward the ballroom. At the doors, she turned and held up her claim ticket like a promise that she would be back. I told myself Nathan had done the practical thing. The photographer was waiting. 20 people were arranged around a fireplace. Claire was cold. Guests needed to be greeted. If he came to me at that moment, he would create a delay, and delays had been treated all day as if they might weaken the structure of the marriage. Still, he had seen me. That made the waiting different. A young man in a brown vest finally appeared carrying a plastic bin of supplies. He had flushed cheeks and the terrified eyes of someone who had already apologized to 3 supervisors. "Coat check?" he asked. "Unless you're the cellist." "I'm Devin. I'm so sorry." They told me 5, but my schedule said 4:30, and then the shuttle, "You're here now." He looked at the rows of coats. "You did all this? It turns out sleeves go on hangers. Where are the tags?" I showed him the system. He checked the numbers, then checked them again. "This is better than how we do it. That's a sentence you should keep from your manager." He laughed nervously. I stepped out from behind the table and smoothed my dress. My knees felt stiff from standing in heels. I reached underneath for my purse, checking that the folded toast was still inside. Before I could leave, Claire appeared. "Evelyn, wait." She had removed the expression she wore for photographs. Up close, I could see strain around her eyes and a faint streak of foundation near her hairline. "They found someone," I said. "I noticed." Claire glanced at Devin. "Are you with the venue?" "Yes, ma'am." "Where have you been?" He started explaining the schedule, but she cut him off. "Never mind. Do you understand her system?" "Yes." "Because we can't have people losing their coats." "No one is losing a coat," I said. Claire picked up the roll of tickets and examined it. "You were giving these out? That is the general spirit of claim tickets. I just want to make sure it's organized." "It is." She set the roll down. Her fingers were trembling slightly. That stopped me. Not because it excused her, but because I knew what fear looked like when it put on expensive makeup. Claire had been waiting for something to go wrong since 6 that morning. The florist had delivered one arrangement with blush roses instead of white. The chapel organist had played the processional too slowly. Richard had misplaced his cufflinks, which were later found in his cuffs. Every corrected problem seemed to convince Claire that a larger one was circling. I softened my voice. "Go have your wedding. Devin has the coats." She exhaled, but not all the way. "One more thing. Can you sit by the gift table until dinner? There are envelopes." I thought I had misunderstood her again. The gift table. "It'll only be 20 minutes. You said I could help here until dinner." "Yes, and I appreciate it. I really do. But people have been leaving cards, and Miranda can't watch everything." Devin bent over the lower shelf, suddenly fascinated by hangers. "Claire," I said, "I'm going into the reception now." Her face changed by degrees. First surprise, then annoyance, then the careful neutrality she used when witnesses were present. "I'm not asking you to miss anything." "You already did." For once, she had no immediate answer. Behind her, music began inside the ballroom. Glasses clinked. Someone called her name. Claire looked over her shoulder, then back at me. "Nathan said you wouldn't mind helping." That landed with such precision that I almost admired it. "When did he say that?" "This morning. We were talking about the staffing issues, and he said you always know what to do." Knowing what to do. That was the compliment they gave me when they needed me to do it. I put my purse over my shoulder. "Find someone else for the envelopes." Claire's mouth tightened. "Fine." She turned so quickly, the damp edge of her gown swept across my shoes. Devin remained bent over until she disappeared. "You can stand up," I told him. "The danger has passed." He rose slowly. I wasn't listening. "Then you're wasted in hospitality." I made it 3 steps toward the ballroom before someone called my name. Nathan's cousin Melissa came through the front doors carrying her shoes in one hand and a wine glass in the other. She had changed into flat sandals after the ceremony, apparently regretted it, and gone back to the shuttle for her heels. Melissa was 42, recently divorced, and incapable of entering a room as though she had merely arrived. "Aunt Evelyn, have you been hiding?" she asked. "No, I've been extremely visible in one specific location." Devin handed her a ticket. Melissa looked at him, looked at the rack, then looked at me. "Oh no, it's handled. Did Claire put you here?" The attendant was late. That wasn't my question. "Melissa." She set her wine glass on the folding table. "Give me the code, Empire. Go inside. Devin has it. Then I'll guard the cards. You heard that?" I heard Claire in the hallway. So did a ficus and possibly the bartender. I picked up her wine glass and handed it back. "You are not getting into an argument at Nathan's wedding." "I don't have to argue. I can ask questions in a tone. Your tone has ended marriages. one marriage, and it needed help. Despite myself, I laughed. Melissa's face softened. She reached out and squeezed my arm. Seriously, go in. They did the family pictures already. I know. She saw something in my face and stopped performing. I didn't know you weren't there, she said. I thought maybe they did yours first. They didn't. What did Nathan say? He's busy getting married. He finished that part 2 hours ago. I looked through the ballroom doors, not in all the ways that count. Melissa followed my gaze. Nathan and Claire stood beside the fireplace while guests formed a loose receiving line around them. He was smiling, accepting handshakes, touching Claire's back whenever she shifted away. He looked happy. He also looked exhausted. For years, I had mistaken Nathan's aversion to conflict for gentleness. They can resemble each other from a distance. Both speak quietly. Both try not to injure. The difference is what happens when injury becomes unavoidable. Gentleness chooses who needs protection. Avoidance chooses whoever is most likely to make the next hour unpleasant. Nathan had always known I could bear disappointment without breaking furniture. Claire had not yet convinced him of the same. Go have your drink, I told Melissa. She hesitated. You want me to get him? No, that was too fast. I don't want my son fetched from his own receiving line like a manager at a restaurant. I'd enjoy it. I know you would. Melissa studied me another second, then kissed my cheek. I'm sitting with you at dinner. You have a place card. Place cards are suggestions printed by tyrants. She went inside before I could answer. The lodge manager appeared a few minutes later. His name was Mr. Harris, according to the brass plate on his jacket, and he had the compressed expression of a man personally responsible for weather, electricity, and human preference. Mrs. Mercer? Ms., my apologies. I understand you covered the coat station. I understand that too. He offered me a white envelope. We'd like to compensate you for your time. I stared at it. Behind him, Devon shook his head quickly, signaling that this was not his idea. I'm the groom's mother, I said. Mr. Harris's face emptied, not dramatically. He simply lost access to every prepared sentence. I was told a guest stepped in. A guest did. I'm terribly sorry. So am I. He withdrew the envelope as if it were hot. Please let me arrange a drink for you. Scotch. 1 ice cube. He nodded with deep professional gratitude. A drink was a problem he understood. As he left, the man in the red tie returned from the ballroom. I need something from my coat. I found his number and brought him the overcoat. He dug through one pocket, located a cigar case, and slipped a folded bill into my hand. Thanks, sweetheart. He walked away before I could stop him. I opened my fingers. $20. For one wild second, I wanted to march into the ballroom, interrupt whatever delicate moment Claire had scheduled, and pin the bill to Nathan's lapel. Instead, I placed it in the tip jar beside Devon. His eyes widened. You don't have to do that. I didn't earn it. You absolutely earned it. That's the problem. Mr. Harris returned with my scotch. The ice cube knocked once against the glass as I carried it into the ballroom. Dinner had not started, but nearly everyone had found a table. I passed the gift display without guarding it. Nothing burst into flames. No thief sprinted into the night carrying embossed envelopes. A board near the entrance listed table assignments. I found M first, then remembered Claire had alphabetized by first name because 2 relatives had the same last name. Evelyn Mercer, table 14. Nathan and Claire were at table 1 with Diane, Richard, the best man, Miranda, and 3 other members of the wedding party. Table 14 stood beside the swinging kitchen doors. Melissa's name was at table 6. I walked over, thinking there had been a mistake. My place card sat between Leon Price, the florist, and Cynthia Bell, whose name badge from the hotel shuttle was still clipped to her purse. On the folded program above my plate, the evening schedule had been revised. The line for the mother-son dance was gone. I set down my scotch, opened my purse, and touched the folded toast. Across the room, Nathan finally saw me. This time he smiled and lifted his hand. I looked at the empty chair in front of me and did not wave back. Nathan's hand lowered slowly. He said something to Claire. She followed his eyes to me, then glanced at the assignment board as if she had only just discovered where table 14 was located. That was almost convincing. Leon Price arrived carrying a plate of bacon-wrapped dates. He was a narrow man with beautiful silver hair and the permanently wounded expression of someone surrounded by people who mishandled flowers. "Evelyn," he said. "Thank God. A civilian. You're sitting here?" They moved me from 12. He looked toward the kitchen doors as they swung open, releasing steam and a waiter with a tray of salads. I appear to have been promoted to poultry inspection. Cynthia Bell approached from the opposite direction. She was a hotel coordinator, not the shuttle driver as I had assumed, and she wore a plum-colored suit with sensible shoes. She read the place cards, then looked at me. "Mrs. Mercer?" "Miss." "Of course. We spoke on the phone about the welcome bags." "We did. You drove the missing bags back to the hotel. They weren't missing. They contained aggressive water." Cynthia blinked. Leon looked delighted. "I'm sorry," she said. "I thought you were seated with the family." "So did I." Leon's expression changed. His eyes went to the assignment board, then across the room to table 1. He was discreet enough not to ask. Cynthia was not. "Isn't the groom your son?" "Last time I checked." She pulled out her chair but didn't sit. "I can speak with the banquet captain." That would make 4 people apologizing for something none of them did. A waiter appeared behind me with a pepper grinder. "Pepper?" "There's no food yet," I said. He looked at my empty plate. "I'm getting ahead. Someone should." Leon snorted. The waiter smiled despite himself and moved on. Across the room, Nathan had started toward me. He made it around one table before an older couple intercepted him. The man embraced him. His wife took Nathan's face between both hands and kissed both cheeks. Nathan looked past them at me with an apologetic tilt of his head. 1 minute again. I sat down. My chair faced the room at an angle, giving me a clear view of table 1. Claire was talking to Miranda with clipped movements of her fingers. Miranda looked at me, then at the empty chair beside Nathan's place setting. She said something to Claire. Claire shook her head. Miranda set down the bouquet she was still carrying and walked over. She did not bother pretending she had come to admire the centerpiece. "This is wrong," she said. Leon folded his hands. Cynthia inspected her napkin. "Apparently it's printed," I said. "You were at table 1 on the first chart." I never saw the first chart. I did. We spent an hour making sure Diane wasn't seated near Frances because of something that happened in Hilton Head. Frances mentioned a long friendship. Is that what she called it? Why was I moved? Miranda pressed her lips together. That was answer enough, but I waited. "The photographer ran long," she said. "Dinner has to stay on schedule." They cut the second dance. And moving my chair saved how many minutes? That wasn't because of the schedule. No, I didn't think chairs took long. Miranda glanced toward Claire. "Richard invited 2 more people yesterday. Claire's parents are paying for the reception, and Diane wanted them at the front. There are 2 extra chairs at that table now. They rearranged some people." "Which people?" She hesitated again. "Miranda, you and Claire's Aunt Sharon. Where is Sharon sitting?" "Table 3. I laughed once. I couldn't help it. Leon murmured, "Oh dear." Miranda closed her eyes briefly. I told her. What did you tell her? That moving the groom's mother to the vendor table was insane. Cynthia lifted one finger. "For clarity, I'm not a vendor. The hotel is accommodating the room block." Miranda turned to her. "I'm so sorry. I just dislike inaccurate categories. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed her." "Did Nathan know?" I asked. Miranda looked miserable. Did he know? He knew there were changes. That was not the question, and she knew it. Before I could ask again, the bandleader tapped his microphone. The speakers answered with a low thump. "Ladies and gentlemen, if everyone could please find their seats, we're about to welcome our families and our wedding party." Conversation swelled as people hurried to tables. Miranda leaned down close to me. "I'll fix this." "How?" "I'll move a chair." "And put it where? Between Nathan and the extra man from yesterday?" I don't care. On top of him if necessary. I touched her wrist. Don't. Evelyn, not now. Not in front of everyone. She studied my face, then looked toward Nathan. He was finally free of the older couple, but the band leader was motioning for him and Claire to line up near the side entrance. Miranda swore under her breath. Go, I said. You're being introduced. I don't feel very introductory. Go anyway. She squeezed my hand and hurried off. Leon sat beside me. I can accidentally spill red wine on someone if that would help. You're a florist. Why are you offering violence? People underestimate us. I'll keep it in reserve. Cynthia sat on my other side and placed her clutch beneath her chair. For the record, our hotel would never seat the groom's mother with service providers. Thank you, Cynthia. We have standards. That's very comforting. The ballroom lights dimmed. The band leader introduced Claire's parents first, calling them the gracious hosts of the evening. Diane and Richard entered to applause. Diane lifted both hands, radiant now that she was warm, and Richard pointed toward someone near the bar. Then came the wedding party in pairs. Miranda entered with the best man but did not dance or wave like the others. She walked straight to table 1, where she set Claire's bouquet beside the centerpiece with more force than the flowers deserved. Nathan and Claire entered last. Everyone stood. So did I. Nathan's smile found me almost immediately. He put one hand over his heart and mouthed, "Love you." It would have cost me nothing to mouth it back. I did love him. That was never the question. I nodded instead. He noticed the difference. His smile held, but only because 100 people were watching him. After the applause, we sat. The salads arrived. The pepper waiter returned, finally vindicated. I had taken 2 bites when Melissa dropped into the empty chair across from me, carrying her place card from table 6. "Tyranny defeated," she announced. "Where's your dinner?" "Coming." I told them I developed an allergy to table 6. Leon raised his glass. To sudden allergies. Cynthia did the same, and accurate classifications. We toasted. It should have been absurd enough to make me feel better. 3 near strangers and my niece by marriage staging a tiny rebellion beside the kitchen doors. For a few minutes it did. Leon told us that Diane had demanded white ranunculus after the seasonal supply was gone and then accused the substitutes of looking emotionally yellow. Cynthia confessed that Richard had called the front desk 4 times, asking whether the hotel bar stocked a specific rye, though he was standing in the hotel bar for 2 of those calls. Melissa ate half my salad while waiting for hers. Then the first speech began. Claire's father stood and welcomed everyone. He spoke warmly about his daughter's determination, how she had always known exactly what she wanted. That earned affectionate laughter, including from Claire. Richard described Nathan as patient, steady, and wise enough to recognize when a woman has a vision. More laughter. Nathan smiled and looked down. Richard thanked Diane, the planner, the venue staff, and everyone who stepped in today to keep things running. Several people glanced toward me. My skin went hot. He did not know what had happened. I was almost certain of that. But gratitude distributed generally can feel like blame when one person has paid for it specifically. When Richard finished, the best man spoke. Then Diane rose unexpectedly. Claire looked surprised but pleased. Diane's speech was polished, affectionate, and 7 minutes too long. She talked about mother-daughter shopping trips, family vacations, and the joy of watching Claire become the woman at the center of the room. She welcomed Nathan into their family and said, "Tonight, there are no sides, only one table." Melissa stopped chewing. Leon stared at his wine. Cynthia looked toward the 14 separate tables with professional concern. I folded my napkin and set it beside my plate. "Where are you going?" Melissa whispered. "Home." "No." "Yes. You can't leave right after that. It'll look like I left." Nathan was listening to Diane, but Claire saw me stand. Her gaze sharpened. She leaned toward him and murmured something. He looked over. I picked up my purse. Melissa caught my hand. At least make him talk to you. Not while his mother-in-law is holding a microphone. Then wait until dinner. I've been waiting since I took off my coat. Leon rose politely to let me pass. Do you want company? No, but thank you. Cynthia offered me my untouched scotch. You may need this. I'm driving. Then you definitely have standards. I smiled at her and stepped away from the table. I had to pass table 1 to reach the entrance. Diane was still speaking, now telling a story about Claire's first job after college. The room faced her. That allowed me to move without creating the public scene Claire feared and Melissa wanted. Nathan's place was empty because he and Claire sat angled toward Diane. His napkin lay across his knee. Beside his water glass was the program with the missing dance. I opened my purse and removed the folded pages. The toast had taken me 3 weeks to write and 26 years to earn. I had planned to tell the room about the thoughtful man my son had become. I had planned to say his father would have been proud. I had planned to welcome Claire without pretending marriage was effortless or love was the same thing as agreement. I slid the toast beneath Nathan's place setting. Miranda saw me. Her eyes moved from the pages to my face. I touched one finger to my lips. She gave the smallest nod. At the coat alcove, Devin stood ready with his numbered tickets. I don't have one, I said. You're the blue wool on the bottom. You remembered. You're my only untagged guest. He retrieved it carefully. Mr. Harris approached as if he sensed a service failure from across the building. Is everything all right, Miss Mercer? No, but the coat is lovely. Devin helped me into it. The $20 bill still sat in his tip jar. As I opened the front door, applause broke out behind me. Diane must have finished. Cold air touched my face. The parking lot shone under tall lamps, every car beaded with mist. My phone buzzed before I reached mine. Nathan. I watched his name brighten the screen, then disappear. A second later, it buzzed again. I put the phone in my pocket and kept walking. The phone buzzed a third time while I was unlocking the car. I got inside, closed the door, and sat with both hands in my lap. Through the windshield, the lodge windows glowed against the wet dark. From that distance, the reception looked exactly as Claire had intended. Warm but not rustic. Elevated but not fussy. No one could see table 14 or the coat alcove or the place where I had stood waiting for my son to keep a small promise. My screen lit again. Nathan, where are you? Then, Mom, please answer. I turned the phone face down in the cup holder. Leaving had felt simple while I was walking toward the door. Driving away required movement, and movement made it real. I started the engine, adjusted the heat, and waited for the windshield to clear. My hands were steady. That offended me somehow. I wanted one of them to shake so I could blame the cold. Melissa called next. I let that one go too. She left a voicemail before I reached the highway. Aunt Evelyn, I know you're driving, so don't answer. Actually, answer if you have the car thing. No, don't. Listen, Nathan is looking for you. Claire is furious, but that's less important than she thinks it is. I told him where you were seated. Miranda told him about the coat check. He found something under his plate, and now he looks like he swallowed a fork. Call me when you get home. Not him, me. There was a pause. And I stole your dessert. It's chocolate. I'll protect it. The message ended. I drove with the radio off. The rain never committed to becoming rain. It hovered in the air and collected on the glass, enough to make the road shine, but not enough for the wipers to find a satisfying rhythm. I passed the chapel, now dark except for one light near the side door. The white ribbons were still tied to the railings, sagging in the damp. The ceremony had been beautiful. That fact kept returning as if it wanted credit for something. Nathan's voice had cracked during his vows. Claire, who corrected everyone and everything, had not corrected him when he put the ring on the wrong finger. She had laughed and held out the right hand. When the officiant pronounced them married, Nathan had looked happier than I had seen him in years. I had been happy for him. I still was. Pain is inconvenient that way. It does not always erase the thing beside it. At home, I parked in the garage and sat until the overhead light shut itself off. The sudden darkness startled me enough to make me laugh. "Well," I said aloud, "very dramatic." My house was quiet except for the refrigerator and the little clock over the stove. I turned on the kitchen lamp. It lit the oak table where Nathan and I had eaten countless Sunday dinners, first with his father and later without him. Michael had been gone 6 years. For the first year after he died, Nathan called every night at exactly 8, as if grief could be managed through attendance. Sometimes we had nothing to say. He would tell me what he had eaten. I would describe whatever was on television. Once we stayed on the phone for 11 minutes discussing a squirrel that had learned to open the feeder. Nathan had never been careless with me then. Maybe that was why carelessness now felt less like ignorance and more like a decision. I went upstairs and removed the blue dress. Without the ballroom lights, it looked ordinary. I hung it carefully instead of dropping it over a chair, though part of me wanted never to see it again. The bobby pins came out one by one. There were 32 of them. I counted because counting was easier than thinking. By the time my hair fell around my shoulders, my head hurt from the sudden absence of pressure. My phone had accumulated 11 messages. Nathan had called 5 times. Melissa had sent a photograph of a chocolate tart wrapped in 3 napkins. Miranda had written, "I'm sorry. I should have come to get you." Claire had not contacted me. I opened Nathan's messages. "Where are you? Mom, please answer. You can't just disappear. People are asking, did you leave this at my seat?" The last message was a photograph of my folded toast in his hand. I enlarged it without meaning to. I could see his wedding ring for the first time. A plain gold band. Michael's had been plain gold too, though Nathan had bought his own. He and Claire had debated brushed metal versus polished for a week. I typed, "Home safe. We'll talk tomorrow." The typing bubbles appeared immediately. "Call me now." I wrote, no, 3 dots again. Mom. I turned off the phone. In the bathroom, I washed Claire's wedding from my face. Foundation, mascara. The lipstick Melissa had insisted made my teeth look aggressively white. The water in the sink went beige, then pink, then clear. I slept badly and woke at 6:15 with one earring still in. For several seconds, I did not remember why I was wearing it. Then the entire evening returned in perfect order. I made coffee and toast. I ate the toast standing at the counter, which Michael had always claimed made food less nutritious. The phone remained off until 8. When I turned it on, messages entered in a rush. The family group chat was full of photographs. Claire and Nathan beneath an arch of white flowers. Claire dancing with Richard. Diane lifting a glass during her speech. The wedding party crowded around the fireplace. In one picture, Nathan stood between Claire's parents, his arm around Richard's shoulder. The empty space beside him had been cropped away. My absence looked clean. The phone rang at 8:17. I answered. "Hi." "Hi," Nathan said. His voice was rough. "That's it? What would you prefer?" "I'd prefer to understand what happened. You were there." "I was at my wedding, Mom. I had 100 people coming at me. I had 58 coats." There was silence on his end. Not total silence. I could hear movement, a door closing, running water somewhere in the background. "Claire told me what happened with the attendant," he said. "I didn't know they kept you there that long. They didn't keep me. You did. That's not fair. It's accurate. I asked you to help us. You asked me after she assigned me." "Assigned you? Come on. What would you call it? A favor. We had a problem. You always help when there's a problem. And then I become part of the furniture? No one said that. No, furniture gets placed near the family." He exhaled sharply. The seating chart got changed at the last minute. It wasn't personal. It was my seat, Nathan. I took it personally. 2 extra guests showed up. Richard invited them. Fine. Richard invited them, and Claire's aunt stayed near the front. I don't know where everybody sat. Did you know where I sat? Another pause. I knew some things had been moved around. That isn't what I asked. Mom, it was chaos. Chaos is an overturned bus. This was cardstock. He made a sound that was almost a laugh, but frustration swallowed it. You could have come to me, he said. You looked at me through the window. I was in the middle of pictures. You told me you would come get me. I couldn't walk away from the photographer. You walked inside. So what did you want me to do? Stop everything? Make an announcement? I wanted you to remember. I did remember. When? He said nothing. I looked out the kitchen window. Leaves had pasted themselves to the deck overnight. A gray squirrel ran along the railing and stopped beside the empty feeder, personally offended by my neglect. Nathan lowered his voice. Do you know how it looked when you left? There it is. What? The important part? That isn't what I mean. People were asking. Because they care about you. Some of them do. Some of them wanted to know why the woman who took their coat had been sitting in the front row at the church. Don't do that. Do what? Make it sound like we humiliated you on purpose. I don't know which version would be better. Claire was under enormous pressure yesterday. So was Devin. Who is Devin? The actual coat attendant. He arrived before your wife asked me to guard the gift envelopes. The running water stopped. What? She didn't tell you that? Claire's voice sounded in the background, too faint to make out the words. Nathan covered the phone or moved it against his chest. Their voices blurred. His rose once, then dropped again. When he returned, he said, She says she asked if you could keep an eye on the table. She did. And you said no. I did. Okay. Good. You said no. After I spent 2 hours saying yes. It wasn't 2 hours, it was close. I thought it was going to be 10 minutes. Did you come back in 10 minutes? He exhaled again. I knew that sound. It was the sound Nathan made when he believed he was trapped between two unreasonable choices. I had spent years helping him find a third. Call your father after he cools down. Tell your boss you need the deadline in writing. Ask Claire what she means instead of guessing. That morning, I did not build him an exit. He said, Why didn't you stay for dinner? I looked at my untouched coffee. You read the toast. Yes, so you know why I came. I know you came for me. I did. Then why couldn't you stay for me? His voice broke slightly on the last word, and for one dangerous moment, I almost apologized. The habit rose fast. I could have told him I was tired. I could have blamed the seating mistake or the canceled dance or my aching feet. I could have given him a reason small enough to forgive without changing anything. Instead, I said, I did stay for you. I stood where your wife put me, and you left me there. Neither of us spoke. The squirrel tapped one paw against the empty feeder. Finally, Nathan said, You didn't even say goodbye. I was afraid if I spoke to you, I would say more than I could take back. And leaving was better? It was quieter. You knew people would notice. Noticing me would have been a nice change. That's cruel. So was yesterday. I heard Claire again. This time her voice was clearer. Tell her about brunch. Nathan said something away from the phone. What brunch? I asked. The gift brunch this morning, at the hotel. I wasn't told about a brunch. We assumed you knew. How? It was on the schedule. The schedule I printed ended at midnight. Claire added it later. Of course she had. What time? 10:30. And what are you asking me to do? Nothing. Just come. I almost believed him. Then Claire said something else in the background. Nathan went quiet. What? I asked. She wants to know if you still have the extra welcome bags. They're in my guest room. Could you bring them? I closed my eyes. There it was. Even after the empty chair, even after the unread toast, even after 5 unanswered calls, they still knew exactly how to make room for me. Give me something to carry. No, I said. It's 4 bags. I'm not coming to the brunch. Mom, I love you, Nathan, but I'm finished accepting invitations that turn into assignments when I arrive. I'm not organizing today, smoothing over yesterday, or carrying anything into that hotel. So what, you're punishing us now? No, I'm removing myself from a job I never applied for. What am I supposed to tell people? The truth would be new. That's not fair. Probably not. He went silent again. I hated the silence. I wanted to reach through it, touch his face, and repair what I had just broken. I also knew that if I repaired it too quickly, we would be back at the coat rack by Christmas, only the sign would have a different name. I don't know what you want from me, he said. I wanted you to come back. I can't change yesterday. No. Then what? For today? Nothing. Claire spoke again, sharper now. Nathan answered her. Then he said into the phone, I have to go. I know. He hung up without saying he loved me. At 10:30, I carried the extra welcome bags from my guest room to the basement. Then I fed the squirrel. The squirrel rejected the seed I gave him. He dug through it with both front paws, threw 3 sunflower shells onto the deck, and looked at me through the glass as if the failures of the weekend had become contagious. You're welcome, I told him. He took the largest peanut and left. At 11:45, I was still in my robe when someone knocked on the front door. Not rang the bell, knocked. 3 hard strikes, a pause, then 2 more. Melissa. Nathan rang once and waited. Claire rang twice because she assumed the first attempt had malfunctioned. Melissa knocked like law enforcement with a personal grudge. I opened the door. She stood on the porch wearing yesterday's makeup, a long cardigan over her reception dress, and Nathan's wedding favor slippers. In one hand, she held a foam container. In the other, she held a bottle of champagne by the neck. You look terrible, she said. You look like you escaped a spa fire. I brought your tart. I don't want champagne. That's fine. This is mine. She walked past me. Melissa was Michael's sister's daughter, which made her my niece by marriage and Nathan's cousin by blood. The family had stopped observing the distinction years ago, mostly because Melissa arrived everywhere as though she owned shares in the building. She went into my kitchen and placed the foam container on the table. The tart had survived poorly. One side was flattened and 3 fingerprints marked the chocolate glaze. You said you were protecting it. I protected it from strangers. You assaulted it yourself? There was confusion in the shuttle. She opened a cabinet, found 2 glasses, and poured champagne into one. Coffee's in the pot, I said. I need both. You're driving. I came in a car service. I left my car at the hotel because I'm a responsible adult. You're wearing slippers with Nathan and Claire's initials on them. Responsibility doesn't have to be joyless. She poured coffee into the second glass because all my mugs were in the dishwasher. I watched her drink champagne, then coffee, alternating with the concentration of a chemist. What happened at the brunch? I asked. I thought you weren't interested. I'm not going to pretend the building vanished because I didn't enter it. Fair. She sat. Diane gave a speech. Of course she did. It was about resilience. What survived? The flowers, apparently. I cut the undamaged half of the tart into 2 pieces. Melissa had already eaten dessert, but she accepted another portion without hypocrisy. Nathan looked miserable, she said. Claire looked furious. Richard looked hungover. Francis asked where you were in the voice people use when they already know. What did Claire say? That you were tired and left early. Reasonable. Then Diane said you were upset about a seating mix-up. Less reasonable. Then Claire said you had been sensitive all day. My fork stopped halfway to my mouth. Melissa watched me. I told her you spent the day hanging strangers' coats while she took pictures. You shouldn't have. I absolutely should have. It was her brunch. So? She doesn't own the truth before noon. I don't want a family campaign. There already is one. You're just not running it. That sounded like something Francis would say. I set down my fork. Who else knows? Everybody who saw the coat rack, everybody at table 14, everybody who saw you leave, and probably everyone who heard Claire and Nathan arguing outside the elevator at 2 a.m. They argued? Melissa drank from the wrong glass, made a face, and switched. I couldn't hear most of it. Their room was down the hall from mine. I heard your name. Then I heard Claire say, she did this deliberately. Nathan said something about the seating chart. Claire said, don't start. Then a door slammed. Whose door? Mine. I was standing in the hall looking suspicious. Despite everything, I smiled. Melissa reached across the table. "He read your toast. He took a picture of it." "No. I mean, he read it at the reception. After you left. I saw him." I looked at the tart. What did he do? Sat there. That's very dramatic for Nathan. He didn't eat dinner. Claire asked him to put it away. He folded it and put it in his jacket. Something in my chest tightened. It was not satisfaction. I did not want him hurt. I wanted him to have behaved differently before hurt became the only thing sharp enough to reach him. Melissa squeezed my fingers. "Call him. I spoke to him this morning. And?" "He asked me to bring welcome bags to the brunch." Her hand released mine. "You're lying." "I wish." "After the coat check?" "After the coat check, the gift table, table 14, and the missing dance." "What missing dance?" I realized she had not noticed the revised program. There was supposed to be a mother-son dance. Melissa's face changed. Was supposed to be? They removed it. Who removed it? The photographer ran long. "That isn't a person. I don't know who made the decision. Did Nathan know? He knows things after they happen. It's one of his gifts." Melissa leaned back and folded her arms. "I'm going to say something you won't like. You usually do. You trained him." I looked at her. "Not to treat you badly," she said. "To believe you'll be okay. You're always the okay one. Uncle Michael died and you called everyone else to make sure they ate. Nathan lost his job at 32 and you kept it from half the family because he was embarrassed. I got divorced and slept in your guest room for 5 weeks while you pretended not to notice I drank wine in the shower. I noticed. I know. You started buying plastic glasses. I was worried you'd cut yourself. My point is, when something gets ugly, Nathan looks for whoever can absorb it. And that excuses him? No. It explains why he has no idea what to do now that the sponge said no. I hated the metaphor. I also hated that it followed me after she left. Melissa took the champagne with her but abandoned the wedding slippers near my front door. I found them that evening and put them in a paper bag. By Monday, the family had developed several versions of my departure. In one, I had been offended because Diane's dress was too close to white. In another, I had expected to give a 20-minute speech and stormed out when the schedule changed. Claire's Aunt Sharon called to assure me she had not asked for my seat, a statement that introduced a possibility I had not considered. "I didn't even know until after dinner," Sharon said. "Claire told me there was more room at the front. I don't blame you. She was under a lot of stress. I've heard. You know how weddings are. I know how that one was." Sharon became quiet. "She said you refused to help with the cards. I helped with the coats. Yes, but she said the cards were important. So was I." There was another silence, longer this time. I'm sure she didn't mean, "Sharon, I love you, but if the next word is it, I'm hanging up." She sighed. "I was going to say anything. That's worse." We ended politely, which is family language for both people putting down the phone harder than necessary. On Tuesday, Diane called. Her voicemail was nearly 4 minutes long. "Evelyn, I think we need to clear the air before this becomes something it isn't. Claire was managing an extraordinary number of details, and when she asked you to help, it was because she considers you dependable. I would hope we can agree that a wedding day is not the proper occasion for keeping score. You leaving early caused Nathan considerable distress, and Claire feels it cast a shadow over what should have been a joyful evening. I know emotions were high, and perhaps expectations were not communicated, but I think an apology would allow everyone to move forward. She did not specify who should apologize. She did not have to. I listened twice, not because I enjoyed it, but because the first time my anger kept interrupting. Then I deleted it. Claire waited until Wednesday evening to contact me. She sent a text instead of calling. "I'm sorry things became uncomfortable at the reception. I wish you had come to me instead of leaving without saying anything. Nathan has been really hurt, and I don't think either of us wants this to damage the family. When you're ready to talk calmly, I'm willing. I read it at the grocery store beside a display of canned pumpkin. A man trying to reach the cranberry sauce said, "Excuse me," 3 times before I noticed him. "Sorry?" "No problem." He retrieved 2 cans and moved away. I stared at Claire's message until the screen dimmed. Then I put my phone in my purse and bought things I did not need. Cinnamon sticks, heavy cream, walnuts, a bag of flour. For years, when I became upset, I cooked for someone. Lasagna for illness, soup for grief, cookies for arguments that ended without resolution. At home, I lined the groceries on the counter and realized I had no one to feed. The following Sunday, I woke before 8 and began making biscuits. Nathan usually called at 9. If he and Claire came to dinner, he called earlier to ask what I was cooking, then claimed the question was unrelated to whether they would accept. I rolled the dough, folded it, rolled it again. At 8:45, I set the oven. At 9, the kitchen was silent. At 9:15, I checked the phone to make sure the ringer was on. At 9:30, I took the biscuits from the oven. They rose high and golden, 12 perfect little proofs that habit could continue without purpose. At 10, I called Melissa, then hung up before the first ring completed. Calling her would feel like choosing a side, even though the side was my own kitchen. I froze 10 biscuits and ate 2 with butter. Nathan did not call. The next Sunday, I made eggs instead. He did not call then either. A week later, a cream envelope arrived in the mail. Claire's handwriting crossed the front in careful navy script. Inside was the formal wedding thank you card. The photograph showed Nathan and Claire on the terrace, the lake behind them, the evening untouched. "Thank you for helping make our day so special." Claire had written the line beneath the printed message. Nathan had signed only his name. I put the card in a drawer and closed it. 10 minutes later, the phone rang. It was Nathan. I answered too quickly. "Hi, hey Mom." Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then he said, "Claire wants to do a little dinner for my birthday." I looked at the closed drawer. That sounds nice. Our apartment's too small. There it was again. Not an invitation. A hanger. Empty, waiting, and held out to me. "No," I said. Nathan went quiet. I could picture him standing in the apartment he shared with Claire, one hand at the back of his neck. The apartment was not particularly small. It had 2 bedrooms, an open kitchen, and a living room large enough for a sectional Claire had ordered in a color called Harbor Fog. What it lacked was a dining table that seated 14 and a mother who already owned enough serving dishes. "No, it isn't too small," he asked. "No, I'm not hosting." "Oh." He had called expecting negotiation, not an answer. I heard the adjustment happening in his breathing. "I thought you liked doing my birthday," he said. "I like your birthday. I don't want to host Claire's parents, your aunts, 3 cousins, and whoever gets added the day before. It wouldn't be a huge thing. How many people? I don't know, 12? So 16. He almost laughed. "Probably. Have it at a restaurant." Claire wanted it to feel personal. "Then Claire can make it personal." That sounds pointed. It's a complete sentence. You're hearing the point because it's there. He sighed. I did not enjoy saying no to him. There was no rush of power, no satisfying click of a lock. There was only the sensation of holding a heavy door closed while someone I loved leaned against the other side. "I'd like to take you to lunch," I said. "Just you and me." "When?" "Friday, your actual birthday." "I have work." "You have always had work." He was quiet again. "We usually do dinner," he said. "We usually do a lot of things." That came out colder than I intended. Nathan heard it. "Okay, I'm not trying to punish you. Then what are you doing? Finding out whether we still know how to spend time together when I'm not feeding a room." He breathed into the phone. Finally, he said, "I can do lunch." We chose a place near his office, an old Italian restaurant where the booths were cracked and the waiters had known him since Michael used to bring him there after dental appointments. The tradition made no medical sense. Nathan would leave with numb gums and eat ravioli. "Friday at 12, I said. "Okay." I waited for one of us to say something that sounded like family. Nathan cleared his throat. The thank you card probably came. It did. Claire mailed them. I recognized her handwriting. She wrote the notes. I recognized that too. Another pause. I didn't know what to write, he said. You signed your name. Yeah, it was very legible, Mom, I softened. I know. He did not say he was sorry. I did not ask him to. At 11:53 on Friday, I was sitting in the same booth where Nathan had once dripped tomato sauce onto a shirt Michael had just bought him. I remembered Michael dipping a napkin in water and making the stain 3 times larger. Leave it, I had told him. You're spreading it. I'm improving the boundary. That isn't how stains work. It's how countries work. Nathan had laughed so hard he choked on a piece of bread. He arrived at 12:14 wearing a blue shirt, no tie, and the distracted expression of someone who had read an email while crossing the street. Sorry, he said. Call ran long. Happy birthday. He bent to kiss my cheek. I caught the clean scent of his aftershave, the same brand he had worn since Claire told him his old one smelled like a bowling alley. He sat across from me. You already order? Just iced tea. The waiter, Carlo, appeared with menus and looked at Nathan for several seconds. Birthday boy, he said. At 37, I think I'm a birthday man. To me, boy. Carlo slapped his shoulder, kissed my cheek, and brought garlic bread without asking. For the first few minutes, Nathan and I talked about his work. He managed operations for a medical supply company, which meant he spent his days preventing problems no one else wanted to understand. He told me about a shipment delayed in Columbus and a new software system everyone hated. You should put it in the code alcove, I said before I could stop myself. His face closed. I'm sorry, I said. That was cheap. Yeah, I'm still funny. You are. He tore a piece of bread into smaller and smaller pieces. I gave him his gift, a leather case for the fountain pen Michael had left him. Nathan had found the pen in a desk drawer after the funeral and carried it loose in his laptop bag ever since. He ran his thumb over the stitching. This is nice. Now it won't leak on your computer. It leaked once. It leaked enough for a lifetime. He smiled, and for a moment the old rhythm returned. Then he set the case beside his plate. Claire's upset you won't host, I assumed. She thinks it's because of her. It is partly because of her. At least you're honest. You used to like that about me. I still do, in theory. Our food arrived. Ravioli for him, chicken piccata for me. Carlo grated Parmesan over Nathan's plate until I told him he was old enough to say stop for himself. Nathan waited until Carlo left. We made a mistake at the wedding. A mistake. Singular. Floating in the air without a subject. Which one? He looked down. The way things went. That's still fog, Nathan. I'm trying. I know. Claire feels like nothing she says will be enough for you. Claire has not apologized. She texted you. She invited me to talk calmly after telling me I hurt you. She was hurt too. I'm sure she was. He put down his fork. You don't sound sure. I believe she was embarrassed. She feels judged by you. I haven't seen her since the wedding. She always feels like she has to prove herself around you. That surprised me enough to quiet me. Prove what? That she's good enough for me. Have I ever told her she wasn't? You don't have to say everything? No, apparently I can seat it near the kitchen. His jaw tightened. I hated myself a little for that one. I also did not take it back. He said, She knows you and I are close. We were. The word landed between us. Nathan looked out the window. People moved along the sidewalk carrying coffee, shopping bags, their own uncomplicated Fridays. We are, he said. Close people notice when one is missing. I noticed. Too late. His eyes returned to mine. There was anger there now, but beneath it, something less protected. Are you coming Saturday? He asked. What's Saturday? The birthday dinner. I thought this was the birthday meal. This is ours. Claire reserved a private room at Bellini's for the family. He had chosen another Italian restaurant 2 days in a row. At least sorrow had not made him unpredictable. Was I invited? She sent an email. I may have missed it. It was possible. Claire's emails looked like corporate announcements and often included phrases such as kindly confirm. I'd like you there, he said. The simple directness of it loosened something. "I'll come." "Really?" "Yes." Relief moved across his face so clearly that I wondered what Claire had told him I would do. I paid for lunch before he could argue. He complained anyway, which felt reassuring. Outside, he hugged me longer than usual. "Thank you for the pen case," he said. "You're welcome." "And lunch. You're welcome." He stepped back. "Saturday at 6. I'll be there." He started toward his office, then turned. "Mom? Yes?" He looked as though he might say more. "Nothing," he said. "See you tomorrow." Bellini's private room had seating for 20, a fireplace that ran on gas, and paintings of Italian villages where no actual Italian had ever lived. Claire had arranged place cards along one long table. Mine was beside Nathan's. I noticed immediately. So did Melissa, who came up behind me and whispered, "Progress. You can see the birthday man without binoculars. Behave. I wore real shoes. That isn't the same thing." Claire approached in a fitted green dress. She kissed the air near my cheek. "Evelyn." "I'm glad you decided to come," Nathan asked me. Her smile held. "Yes, he really wanted you here. I wanted to be here." For 1 second, neither of us moved. Claire looked beautiful and tired. Marriage had not relaxed her. If anything, she seemed more alert, as though the wedding had been the first event in a series no one else knew had begun. "I hope we can have a pleasant evening," she said. "I generally hope for that. I mean, without tension. I didn't bring any." Melissa walked past us carrying 2 drinks. I did, but mine fits in a clutch. Claire ignored her. Diane and Richard arrived with an elaborately wrapped box and enough noise to shift the room's center. Diane kissed me on both cheeks, then held my shoulders. "Evelyn, we've all been worried. Have you? You left so suddenly. 3 weeks ago. Well, these things linger when they aren't addressed." Behind her, Richard shook my hand. "Good to see you," he said. "Hell of a wedding." "That's one description." He laughed, unaware there were alternatives. At dinner, Claire made a toast to Nathan. It was affectionate and funny. She described his habit of replacing household items before they were empty, so they owned 4 bottles of dish soap but had once run out of toilet paper. Nathan laughed harder than anyone. I watched them together and saw why he loved her. Claire paid attention. She remembered his phrases, his preferences, the tiny private foolishness of him. Her sharpness could cut, but it could also focus like a light. Then Diane lifted her glass. To Claire, for pulling this together at the last minute, she said, when the original plan became unavailable. Several people looked at me. Claire lowered her eyes, but not before I saw satisfaction flicker there. Nathan shifted beside me. "Mom offered to take me to lunch," he said. "This was always Claire's dinner." Diane blinked. It was not a heroic defense. He did not mention the request to use my house. He simply corrected the sentence. Still, it was the first time since the wedding that Nathan had allowed someone else to be uncomfortable instead of me. Under the table, I touched his wrist. He glanced at me. "Thank you," I said quietly. His shoulders eased. The evening remained pleasant, if not tension-free. Claire watched the small exchange. She smiled when people looked at her, served cake, thanked the restaurant staff, and never once asked me to carry anything. 2 days later, a group text arrived from her. "Thanksgiving. I know everyone is busy, so let's confirm plans early. Evelyn's house as usual, 3 p.m., dinner at 4. Please reply with dietary restrictions." Diane answered first. "Can't wait, I'll bring my appetite." Richard sent a thumbs up. Sharon wrote, "Perfect." Nathan did not respond. I read the message twice. Then I typed, "My house is available from 3 to 7. I'm making turkey, dressing, and gravy. Everyone attending can choose one side, appetizer or dessert to bring. Please add your dish to this thread so we don't duplicate." The typing bubbles appeared. Claire. "We usually keep Thanksgiving simple." I looked around my empty kitchen. Then I wrote, "So do I. This is how." Melissa claimed mashed potatoes before anyone else could answer. I'm also bringing wine because potatoes are thirsty. Sharon chose pumpkin pie. Richard volunteered ice, which was not a dish, but represented the outer limit of his culinary confidence. Claire selected salad and roasted vegetables, then added that Diane would bring cranberry sauce. Diane replied with a heart. Nathan wrote, "I'll come early to help Mom with the turkey." Claire did not respond to that. She called me 20 minutes later. "I'm confused," she said. "About which side dish? About why you're doing this. I'm hosting Thanksgiving. You're assigning food. I'm asking adults to contribute. But you always cook. Yes. And now, after everything, you suddenly don't want to. I'm cooking the turkey, dressing, and gravy. That's most of Thanksgiving. It doesn't feel welcoming to invite people and then give them jobs." I looked at the phone. "Claire, at your wedding, you invited me and gave me a job. That is exactly what I mean." "What do you mean?" "You're making a statement. I'm making gravy. You know what I'm saying? I know you don't like being expected to contribute." "That isn't fair. I'm bringing two things." "Then what's the problem?" "The problem is that you're turning family traditions into some kind of test. You volunteered salad. If the lettuce fails, we'll still let you eat." She let out a hard breath. "This is exhausting. I agree. I'm trying to keep the family together. So am I. From 3 to 7. Why do you keep saying that?" "Because last year you and Nathan stayed until nearly 11 while I cleaned around you. You could have asked us to help. I'm asking now." The silence on her end lasted long enough for me to hear a car horn outside her apartment. "Fine," she said. "We'll be there at 3. Nathan said he was coming early." "We'll see." She hung up. For several days, the group text became a negotiation over oven space. Melissa wanted to finish her potatoes at my house. Claire needed 40 minutes at 400 degrees for the vegetables. Sharon's pie had to be warmed but not heated, a distinction she explained twice. I created a schedule, then stopped myself from sending it. The entire point was not to become unpaid air traffic control for casserole dishes. Nathan arrived Thanksgiving morning at 10:30, carrying coffee, 2 bags of groceries, and a bakery box. "You're early," I said. "You said early. I expected noon. That's holiday early. You taught me regular early." He kissed my cheek and held out the coffee. 2 creams, 1 sugar. "You remembered." "I remember things." He heard the edge in his own words and looked away. I took the coffee. "What's in the box?" "Pastries. For 12 people? For us? Claire says your appetizers will cover everybody later." "Did she approve private pastry consumption?" I didn't ask. That small rebellion should not have pleased me as much as it did. Nathan removed his coat and hung it in the front closet himself. He came into the kitchen, washed his hands, and inspected the turkey. "What do you want me to do?" The question was so direct that I nearly gave him 5 tasks out of reflex. "Peel carrots." "How many?" "All of them." "That's not a number. It's a philosophy." He sat at the table with the peeler and worked carefully, producing thin orange ribbons that landed mostly in the bowl. We talked about ordinary things. My furnace had started making a clicking sound. His company had abandoned the software system everybody hated and replaced it with one everybody feared. The squirrel had returned and was now eating only the peanuts. Nathan did not mention Claire or the wedding. I did not either. At noon, he opened the bakery box. 2 almond croissants sat inside, dusted with sugar. "These are from Le Jardin," I said. "You like them. They're across town from you. I know where they are." We ate them standing at the counter. Flakes fell everywhere. Nathan brushed his into his palm and mine onto the floor. "Why do you get to be cleaner? Birthday privilege lasts a week. It has been 9 days. I lost 2 days to emotional distress. You still need to sweep." He smiled. The old ease between us was still there. It had not died. It had gone somewhere inaccessible and left us both pretending the distance was architecture. At 2:45, the doorbell rang. Melissa stood outside with a covered pot large enough to bathe in and 3 bottles of wine tucked under one arm. "I need a burner, butter, and praise," she said. "You may have one of those." "Fine. Butter." Sharon came next with 2 pies, whipped cream, and her husband, Tom, who carried folding chairs even though I had not asked for them. At exactly 3, Claire arrived with a large wooden salad bowl balanced against her hip. Nathan opened the door for her. She kissed him, handed him the bowl, and turned to accept 2 foil pans from Richard. Diane stood on the porch holding a flower arrangement. "Happy Thanksgiving," she announced. I looked at the arrangement. White roses, orange mums, eucalyptus. "It's beautiful," I said. "I thought your table needed something festive." "It does." She walked inside. No cranberry sauce followed her. Richard carried in the roasted vegetables and a bag of ice. "Where do you want this?" he asked, lifting the ice. "In the freezer." He nodded as though I had solved something difficult. Claire placed the salad on the counter and began rearranging serving utensils. "Where's the cranberry sauce?" she asked. I thought Diane had it. Diane, removing her shawl in the hallway, called, "Had what?" "The cranberry sauce." "Oh." She entered the kitchen. "I thought Evelyn always made that lovely one with orange." "I didn't this year." Diane's smile faltered. "But you always do. You chose cranberry sauce in the message. I thought Claire was just being inclusive." "Inclusive of cranberries?" Melissa turned toward the sink to hide her face. Diane looked at Claire. I didn't realize she was serious. Claire's cheeks colored. Nathan opened a cabinet. "We probably have a can." "We don't," I said. "I can run to the store." "No. Dinner can survive without cranberry sauce. It's 2 minutes. The stores are crowded, the turkey needs carving, and you said you were helping me." He closed the cabinet. "All right." Diane gave a small laugh. "Well, this is new." "Yes," I said, "it is." The kitchen tightened around us. Then Richard opened the freezer, put the ice inside, and said, "I've never cared for cranberry sauce." Diane stared at him. "What?" he said. "I haven't." Nathan laughed first. Melissa followed. Even Sharon smiled. Claire did not. Dinner began 7 minutes late because Melissa's potatoes were still cold in the middle. No one died. We put the flower arrangement on the sideboard because it blocked every face at the table. Nathan carved the turkey with Michael's old carving knife. He had watched his father do it for years but had apparently absorbed none of the technique. The first slice came off in 3 pieces. "Against the grain," I said. "What grain?" "The lines in the meat. There are lines everywhere. Your father made it look easy. Dad also pretended he knew how to sharpen this knife. He did know. He rubbed it on that metal stick and frowned. That is sharpening. That is theater." He adjusted the blade and tried again. The next slice came away clean. "See?" I said. "Luck." Skill passed through criticism. Claire watched us from the doorway. Her expression was unreadable. The meal was good. Not perfect, which made it better than several holidays I had exhausted myself trying to perfect. Melissa's potatoes had one cold pocket. Claire's vegetables were slightly charred and delicious. Sharon's rolls came from a grocery store despite her claim that she had finished them at home. Diane passed the gravy and said, "I do miss your cranberry relish, Evelyn. Next year, you can make it." "Oh, I don't have your recipe. I'll send it. I'm not much of a cook. Neither was I until everyone got hungry." Tom coughed into his napkin. Diane set down the gravy boat. "I've always thought hosting was a gift. Some people have a talent for it." "It is a gift," I said. "That doesn't mean the same person has to give it every time. We all contribute in different ways." Melissa lifted her wine. Aunt Diane contributed flowers. Diane was not Melissa's aunt, but Melissa bestowed family titles according to tactical need. Claire's fork touched her plate. "Can we please not do this?" "Do what?" Diane asked. Claire looked at me. For the first time, I realized she did not want her mother fighting this battle. Not because Claire agreed with me, but because every sentence made the wedding more visible. "Talk about hosting," she said. "It's Thanksgiving." "Fine," Diane replied. "I'm only saying traditions matter." Nathan set down his knife. "Mom made most of the traditions," he said. Everyone looked at him. He continued, quieter. "The rest of us just showed up and called them traditions. It was not an accusation. That made it harder to dismiss." Richard nodded slowly. "That's probably true." Diane gave him a look sharp enough to carve the turkey. Claire drank water. I did not thank Nathan this time. I simply passed him the dressing. After dinner, no one moved at first. 12 adults sat with empty plates and the confidence that some invisible signal would begin cleanup. I stood. Nathan stood too. "So," I said, "who wants dishes and who wants leftovers?" Melissa chose leftovers. Sharon gathered plates. Tom folded the extra chairs he had brought but never opened. Richard carried glasses to the kitchen and put them beside the dishwasher because he did not know where they went. Diane announced that her back was bothering her and sat in the living room with coffee. Claire began scraping plates. I watched her for a moment. "You don't have to do all of those," I said. She did not look up. "I know." It was a small answer, but not a careless one. At 6:52, Diane appeared in her coat. Richard had packed the leftover vegetables. Sharon and Tom left with half a pie. Melissa kissed me and whispered, "The cranberry died for our sins." Claire stood at the door while Nathan carried their containers to the car. "Thank you for dinner," she said. "You're welcome." "The turkey was good, so were your vegetables." She glanced toward the kitchen. "I didn't realize how much there was to clean. There's always more after people stop seeing it." Her eyes met mine. For 1 second, I thought she might say something about the reception. Instead, she said, "Nathan told me he came early. He did. He didn't tell me until this morning. He brought coffee. I'm sure it was nice." There was jealousy in her voice, but not the kind I expected. She did not sound jealous of Nathan's affection. She sounded excluded from a private room she had not known existed. "You could come early, too, next time," I said. Her face shifted. "To work. To be with us." Before she could answer, Nathan returned. "Ready?" Claire asked. He looked from her to me. "In a minute." Claire put on her gloves. "I'll wait in the car." After she left, Nathan stood in my foyer with his coat unbuttoned. "Today was good," he said. "It was. Mostly. We'll mourn the cranberry privately." He smiled but did not move. Then he reached inside his coat and touched something in the inner pocket. The motion was brief, almost unconscious. Paper made a soft sound. My toast. He saw me recognize it. "I've been carrying it," he said. "I wondered where it went. I want to talk about it." "Now?" He glanced through the front window. Claire sat in the passenger seat, her face lit by her phone. "No," he said. "Not like this." "All right. Can I come tomorrow?" "Alone?" He flinched. I almost withdrew the question. Instead, I waited. "Yes," he said. "Alone." I opened the door for him. "Come at 11. He stepped onto the porch, then turned back. "I knew they cut the dance," he said. The admission was so quiet I could have pretended not to hear it. But he had finally come back for me. I was not going to make it easy for him to leave again. Nathan arrived at 11 carrying the folded toast and nothing else. No coffee, no bakery box, no welcome bags waiting in the car. He had changed out of yesterday's clothes, but not slept much. His hair was still damp from the shower, and a patch of red showed along his jaw where he had missed with the razor. "Come in," I said. He hung his coat in the closet. This time, he did not make a joke about it. We went into the kitchen. The dishwasher hummed with the final Thanksgiving load, and 2 roasting pans soaked in the sink because some traditions survived reform. I had made coffee but left the cups in the cabinet. Nathan sat at the table. I sat across from him. He placed the toast between us. It had acquired a second crease and a faint stain near one corner, probably wine or gravy. I wanted to smooth it, but I kept my hands in my lap. "You said you knew about the dance," I said. He nodded. "When?" "The day before the wedding. Not during dinner. Not after I left. The day before." "Why didn't you tell me?" Claire said the schedule was too tight. The band had to stop at 10 because of the venue rules, and the photographer needed more time, and speeches were already running long. The speeches had not happened yet. She knew her mother's would. I nearly smiled. It was the first perfectly sensible thing connected to the decision. Nathan rubbed his thumb over the edge of the pages. "Claire wanted to cut one of the dances," he continued. "She wasn't going to cut hers with Richard. So you cut ours. She said you'd understand. And you agreed. I said you probably would. There it was. Not cruelty, not malice. Something much older and harder to defend. Confidence in my surrender. You didn't ask me, I said. I didn't want to disappoint you before the wedding. You preferred to surprise me with it at the reception. I thought we could do something privately later. What? I don't know. Dance at home. I stared at him. He winced. It sounds stupid now. It sounded stupid before. You just didn't say it out loud. I know. The dishwasher clicked into silence. Outside, the squirrel appeared on the deck railing. He examined the feeder, found it full, and selected a peanut without acknowledging my improvement. What about the seat? I asked. Nathan looked down at the toast. Did you know I was moved? Claire told me there had been changes. That's what you said on the phone. I knew you weren't at table 1. My mouth went dry despite knowing the answer already. When? After the ceremony, before we left the chapel. And what did you say? I asked where you were. What did she tell you? That you'd be with Melissa and some people you knew. Melissa was at table 6. I didn't know that. You didn't look. No. Why was I moved? Nathan pressed both palms against the table. Diane wanted the Brennans near her. Richard invited them late. Claire's aunt had already been placed at the front, and moving her would have started another thing with Diane. So Claire moved me. Yes. And you let her? Yes. His answer was barely audible, but it was the first one without fog. I stood and went to the counter. The coffee was still hot. I poured 2 cups, though he had not asked for one, and brought them to the table. Nathan wrapped both hands around his. Claire was crying, he said. I looked at him. At the chapel, in the little room behind the office. Her mother had told her the tables looked crowded. The photographer was angry because people were late. The flowers at the lodge weren't what she ordered. She said she couldn't handle one more fight. So you made sure she didn't have one with me. I thought you would be all right. I was your mother at your wedding. Why was all right the goal? He shut his eyes. I waited. When he opened them, they were wet. I don't know. Yes, you do. He shook his head. You knew I wouldn't yell, I said. You knew I wouldn't threaten not to come. You knew I wouldn't make Claire cry in a room behind the office. You chose the person who would cause the least trouble. I chose my wife on our wedding day. No, choosing your wife would have been telling her the Brennans could sit somewhere else. You chose silence. His face tightened. That's not fair to her. It's not about her. You keep saying it is. I'm angry with Claire, but she never promised to come back for me. You did. The sentence seemed to go through him slowly. He turned the coffee cup between his hands. I saw you through the window, he said. I know. I was going to come inside after that picture. What happened? Diane was freezing. Claire wanted the fireplace pictures before her hair fell. Then Richard's friend pulled me into a conversation, and then they introduced us. You forgot. He looked at me. I forgot. It hurt more spoken, plainly. It also hurt less than another excuse. Nathan unfolded the toast. I knew every line. I had written the first version by hand, then typed it, then printed it in 14-point font because reception lighting was designed by people who assumed mothers had excellent vision. I read this 3 times, he said. You carried it longer than I did. His thumb found the faint stain. I don't remember the grocery store. You were 9. Adult Nathan smiled weakly. Was I really that upset about not holding a door? You were upset that you hadn't noticed me behind you. You made us go back. I made you return to a grocery store? We had reached the car. You said you needed to do it correctly. Did I? Did you what? Hold the door. You held it for 6 people before I got there. 1 man tried to tip you. Nathan laughed, but the sound broke apart. He looked down at the paragraph. I had written about that day because Michael used to tell the story whenever Nathan became too proud of himself. Not to embarrass him, to remind him that thoughtfulness had once been instinctive, something he practiced even when no one asked. I thought I was still that person, Nathan said. You are still that person. He raised his eyes. You just weren't that person at the lodge. A tear slipped down his cheek. He wiped it quickly, irritated by the evidence. Dad wouldn't have done that to Grandma, he said. Your father did several foolish things involving your grandmother. Not that. No. He would be ashamed of me. Your father is not here to be used as a weapon. I'm not. You are. You want me to say he'd forgive you so you can feel better, or say he'd condemn you so you can feel properly punished. Neither one changes what happened. Nathan folded the toast again, carefully matching the old creases. What does change it? Nothing changes it. His face collapsed slightly. I reached across the table and placed my hand over his. That doesn't mean nothing can change after it. He looked at our hands. I'm sorry, he said. The words were quiet, no defense followed them. I'm sorry I left you there. I'm sorry I knew about the seat and the dance and convinced myself you wouldn't care as much as Claire would. I'm sorry I read this after it was too late. I squeezed his fingers. Thank you. Is that it? What do you mean? You say thank you and I go home. I don't know what you expect. I don't either, that's honest. He pulled his hand away and rubbed both palms over his face. Claire thinks you're making her prove herself. I never asked her to. She feels like you never need her, like you're always the one who knows everything and fixes everything, and she's just the woman who came later. I tried to include her. You corrected the spelling on the invitations. She misspelled your uncle's name. You reorganized the welcome bags after she did them. She put the hotel addresses inside the bags after people had already arrived at the hotel. I know. His mouth moved despite himself. That was not helpful. No, she takes that stuff as judgment. Then why does she keep asking me to fix it? Because you're good at it. And because, if I'm useful, she doesn't have to decide whether she likes me. Nathan leaned back. That's not fair. It may not be. But usefulness has become the only safe place she gives me. He considered that. Her mother is worse, he said. That is not a defense of your wife. I know. I'm just starting to notice things. Good. What am I supposed to do? There was the question I had answered for him all his life, the question that made me feel necessary and kept him from becoming responsible for his own discomfort. I'm not giving you instructions. Why not? Because then I become useful again, and you complete the assignment and call it change. He stared at me. That's brutal. It's new for me, too. He stood and walked to the window. The squirrel had climbed down into the feeder and was sitting directly in the seed. Nathan pointed. He's not supposed to be in there. He rejects my boundaries. Runs in the family. I gave him a look. Too soon? He asked. By several holidays. He came back to the table. I don't want to lose you. Then stop visiting me only when something is broken. I came yesterday to peel carrots. Nothing was broken. Melissa's potatoes. They were frozen at the center. We smiled, and this time the warmth did not erase what sat between us. It simply made room beside it. Nathan picked up the toast. Can I keep this? It's yours. He put it inside his coat. At the front door, he hugged me. He held on the way he had outside the restaurant, but there was no schedule waiting behind him this time. I love you, he said. I love you too. He left at 12:40. At 12:47, my phone rang. Claire. I let it ring once before answering. Hello? What did you say to him? She asked. No greeting, no careful invitation to a calm conversation. Ask your husband, I did. He said we have to change how we treat you. That sounds like something he said. He came home from Thanksgiving upset, then left this morning carrying your speech. Now he says he agreed to things he shouldn't have agreed to. He did. You had him here for almost 2 hours. He came to talk. About me. About himself. She made a short, disbelieving sound. You always do this, she said. Do what? Make him feel like he has failed you, and then act like you never asked for anything. I looked at the 2 coffee cups on the kitchen table. I asked him to come back, I said. Claire's voice sharpened. And now what? He spends our marriage apologizing to you? No. Now he learns whether he can love one woman without making the other one smaller. The line went silent. When Claire spoke again, her voice had changed, not softer, wounded. You think that's what I did? I think it's what both of you did. She hung up. This time I did not feel victorious. I stood in my clean kitchen listening to the dial tone, knowing Nathan had finally stepped out of the middle, and knowing Claire had just discovered I would no longer step into it for him. Nathan called that evening. I'm not calling to ask you for anything, he said before I could say hello. That sounds rehearsed. It is. What aren't you asking for? Mom. Sorry. He paused. Claire told me she called you. She did. She's angry. I noticed. She thinks you blame her for everything. I told her you both made choices. That did not comfort her. It wasn't designed to. Nathan sighed, but the sound lacked its old accusation. I don't want you two fighting through me. Then don't carry messages. I'm not. You just told me she's angry. That was context. That was a message wearing glasses. He laughed once. Okay, I'm not calling about Claire. What are you calling about? Another pause. I don't know. I said I would call. We talked for 20 minutes about nothing useful. That was how I knew he was trying. He told me the bakery had overcharged him for the almond croissants. I told him the squirrel had started burying peanuts in my flower pots. We discussed whether the clicking noise in my furnace came from the vent or the wall. Nathan did not offer to fix it until I asked whether he knew anything about furnaces. I know they're expensive, he said. That's not knowledge. That's dread. I'll come listen to it Saturday. You don't have to. I know. He came Saturday with a flashlight and a screwdriver set. The clicking turned out to be a loose vent cover, which meant Nathan repaired it in 4 minutes and spent the next hour pretending the problem had been more complicated, so neither of us would have to explain why he stayed. He called the next Sunday, too. Claire remained absent. I did not ask about her. The omission grew noticeable, then deliberate. I knew enough about marriage to understand that silence could become its own form of interference. I also knew asking after Claire would invite Nathan to describe private arguments, and I would not let his new honesty turn me into his refuge from his wife. When he started to say, Claire and I had this thing about Christmas, I stopped him. Are you telling me because it affects my plans? No. Then work it out with Claire. You used to let me talk to you. You used to call it talking when you wanted me to tell you which person was right. That is talking. That is judging with snacks. He smiled, but his eyes stayed serious. You don't want to know? I want you to have a marriage that doesn't require my vote. He looked down at his coffee. That would be easier if she didn't think every boundary is an attack. That sounds like something to tell your wife. I did. I waited. It didn't go well, he said. Then he changed the subject himself. Christmas was being held at Diane and Richard's house. Claire sent the invitation by email, complete with a schedule, parking instructions, and a note that festive jewel tones were encouraged for photographs. At the bottom, beneath a list of dishes already planned, she wrote, Evelyn, could you bring your scalloped potatoes? If you can come around 2, I'd also love your help getting the dining room settled before everyone arrives at 4. I read it twice. The request was almost ordinary. In another year, I would have arrived at 1:30 with the potatoes already hot, corrected the table settings, reheated the appetizers, located Richard's corkscrew, and stayed in the kitchen until someone shouted that dinner was ready. I answered, I'm happy to bring the potatoes. I'll arrive at 4 with the other guests. Claire replied 12 minutes later. Don't worry about the potatoes. We have plenty of food. No greeting. No thanks. I set the phone down. Nathan called that night. Did Claire tell you to call? No. Did she tell you I refused to come early? She told me you declined to help. Those are different sentences. I know. That stopped me. What did you say to her? I asked. That you agreed to bring a dish and arrive when invited. And she said that wasn't the point. Did she explain the point? She said family comes early. Which family? He was quiet. "Exactly," I said. "Bring the potatoes." "She told me not to. I'm telling you she wants them. I am not taking instructions from you about what your wife secretly wants. They're my favorite. That is emotional fraud. It's Christmas. I'll bring them." Diane and Richard lived in a large brick house where every surface reflected either light or a person standing too close to it. At 4 o'clock, I carried the casserole through a foyer decorated with silver branches, glass ornaments, and a life-sized wooden reindeer that looked more expensive than my first car. Richard opened the door wearing a velvet jacket. "Potatoes," he said with genuine pleasure. At least someone invited them. He did not understand, which allowed him to remain delighted. From the dining room, Claire called, "Dad, don't leave the door open." She appeared in a deep red dress and stopped when she saw the casserole. "I thought I said we had enough food. Nathan requested these." Her eyes flicked toward him. He stood near the fireplace arranging bottles on a drinks tray. He gave her a small nod. Claire looked back at me. "The oven is full. They're hot. Dinner isn't for another hour. They'll stay warm." I kissed her cheek before she could develop a third objection. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas," she said. The house was not ready. The dining table was beautifully set, but 2 chairs were missing. The ice bucket leaked. Diane could not find the place cards, though she insisted she had put them somewhere visible. An appetizer tray had been delivered to the wrong address. For 20 minutes, I watched problems occur without adopting them. It was astonishing how few required me. Richard found folding chairs in the basement. Nathan placed a towel beneath the ice bucket. Diane discovered the place cards inside a cabinet with the wine glasses, where she had put them to keep them visible to herself. Claire moved quickly from room to room, fixing details. Twice she looked at me. The first time, I was speaking with Francis, who wore a purple suit and informed me that Hilton Head remained classified information. The second time, I was drinking wine beside Melissa while Richard tried to light a fire using instructions from the internet. Claire did not ask me to help. At dinner, I was seated beside Francis and across from Nathan. The place was not ceremonial, but it was not hidden. I could see the whole table without turning toward a kitchen door. Diane served a beef tenderloin that was nearly raw in the center. Richard carved around the edges and called it European. The potatoes disappeared first. "These are wonderful," Francis said. "Evelyn always makes them," Diane replied. "Some traditions are sacred." Nathan glanced at me. I said, "I'm glad you like them. Nothing else." The old Evelyn would have caught the hook and either swallowed it or pulled. The new one was learning that not every line needed tension. Halfway through dinner, Claire knocked her water glass over. The spill spread across the cloth toward the breadbasket. Everyone moved at once. I reached for my napkin. So did Nathan. Then Claire put both hands flat on the table. "I've got it," she said. She stood, collected napkins from the sideboard, and blotted the cloth herself. Nathan lifted her plate out of the way but did not take over. No one summoned me. The water stopped at the centerpiece. Claire sat down again, cheeks pink. Frances raised her glass, averted. A few people laughed. Claire looked at me. I smiled. Her expression softened before she remembered not to let it. After dinner, I carried my own plate into the kitchen. Claire stood at the sink scraping serving dishes. Diane was in the living room opening another bottle of wine. "Where do you want this?" I asked. "On the counter." I set it down. She glanced at me. "You don't have to help." "I know." The same words she had given me at Thanksgiving. I picked up a towel anyway and dried the platter beside her. For several minutes, we worked without speaking. "You could have come early," she said finally. "It wasn't going to be coat check." "I know. I just wanted the house to look nice." It did. "My mother gets overwhelmed. So do you." She scraped at a spot of dried sauce. "You think I'm exactly like her?" "No." Claire looked up. "I think you work very hard not to be," I said. "And when you get scared, you sound just like her." The platter stopped moving in my hands. Claire stared at the sink. "That's a cruel thing to say on Christmas." "It may be. You always know how to make it sound reasonable." I'm not trying to win. It feels like you are. Then stop making every conversation a contest." She dropped the spoon into the sink. The metal struck porcelain sharply. Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Everything okay?" Claire turned. The old version of this moment was so familiar I could feel it forming. She would say something clipped. He would look at me, silently asking me to soften. I would make a joke, pick up a dish, and save the evening. I dried my hands. "Claire and I disagree," I said. "You don't have to solve it." She looked at me, surprised. Nathan remained in the doorway. "Okay." He did not ask who had started it. Claire's face changed. Some of the anger left, replaced by something more unsettled. "I need air," she said. She walked past him. Nathan watched her go, but did not follow immediately. "Go," I told him. "You said I don't have to solve it." "You don't. You can still be her husband." He nodded and followed her toward the back door. I finished drying the platter. By January, Nathan had become dependable in small, almost boring ways. He called. He stopped by. He remembered the furnace filter and replaced it without turning the visit into proof of his goodness. Once he brought Claire with him for coffee. She stayed 40 minutes, spoke mostly about work, and did not ask me to do anything. It was not warmth. It was practice. The distance between Nathan and Claire showed in odd places. He no longer answered for her. She no longer assumed he would agree before she finished speaking. They were polite with a precision that made me tired to watch. I refused to take responsibility for repairing it. In February, a thick white envelope arrived. Nathan and Claire were hosting their first formal dinner as a married couple. 10 guests, cocktails at 6, dinner at 7. The invitation was absurdly elegant for an apartment with harbor fog furniture, but I admired the effort. I accepted. 2 days before the dinner, Claire called. Her voice was pleasant, almost cautious. "Evelyn, I was wondering if you could arrive around 5:15. I looked at the invitation on my refrigerator. "What for?" "Just to help me get everyone settled. Take coats, direct people toward drinks, make sure my parents have what they need. The old language in a new room." "I'll arrive at 6, I said. "It would mean a lot to Nathan. Then Nathan can ask me." She went quiet. "This doesn't have to be difficult. It isn't. I'm coming as a guest. I thought we were making progress. We are. This doesn't feel like it. Progress is you asking. It's also me answering." Her breath sharpened. "So your answer is no. My answer is that I'll see you at 6. I hung up before either of us could turn the boundary into a war. At 6 o'clock on Saturday, I rang their bell wearing the midnight blue dress. Nathan opened the door. For half a second, he simply looked at me. "The dress," he said. "The invitation said cocktail attire." "No, I mean, you wore that to the wedding." "I did." His face shifted, but he did not apologize for noticing. "You look beautiful," he said. "Still myself, but expensive?" He smiled. "Exactly. I had almost chosen something else." The blue dress had remained at the back of my closet since the reception, protected by a garment bag as though fabric could absorb memory. Putting it on that evening had felt less like bravery than refusing to surrender a perfectly good dress to 2 hours beside a brass rack. Nathan stepped aside. "Come in." The apartment looked transformed. Claire had moved the harbor fog sectional closer to the windows and rented a long table that stretched from the dining area into the living room. Cream candles ran down its center at 3 heights. I counted without meaning to. They were staggered naturally. My coat was still buttoned. Nathan reached for it. "I can take that." The words were ordinary. His eyes were not. I turned, and he slipped the coat from my shoulders. He carried it down the hall and hung it in the bedroom instead of dropping it on the bed with the others. Claire came out of the kitchen wearing black silk trousers and a soft gold blouse. Her hair was pulled into a low knot. She had flour near one cuff. "You're here," she said. "It's 6. "Yes." She glanced at Nathan as he returned. "I told you she'd be on time," he said. "I didn't say she wouldn't be. You set an alarm. That was for the pastry." They looked at each other. Not hostile. Careful. "Your table is beautiful," I said. Claire's attention returned to me. "Thank you. And the candles are organic." Her mouth almost smiled. "They're also careless. Growth." The doorbell rang. Nathan answered it. Frances entered in a black suit with a green silk scarf, followed by Miranda and a man she introduced as Russell, her husband. I had met him briefly at the wedding but had been holding his coat at the time. He shook my hand. We didn't get to talk at the reception. I was working. Miranda closed her eyes. Russell looked from her to me. I heard about that approximately every night of our honeymoon. "It wasn't your honeymoon," Miranda said. "It felt long." She elbowed him. Claire had invited Paul and his wife Anna, as well as Diane and Richard. With Nathan, Claire, and me, that made 10. Frances arrived carrying wine. Paul brought flowers. Miranda brought nothing and announced this proudly. I was told I'm a guest. Her eyes went briefly to Claire. Claire looked toward the kitchen. Drinks are on the bar. No one reacted to the small collision, but it sat in the room. Nathan poured wine. He mixed Richard a bourbon. Claire moved between the kitchen and the table, checking a pastry in the oven every few minutes. I sat beside Frances on the sofa. "Same dress," she murmured. "You remember?" "I remember cashmere and injustice. Do you rehearse these lines? I've had a long winter." She held up her glass. Across the room, Diane surveyed the table. "I would have used the shorter candles," she told Claire. "People need to see one another. They can. I'm only saying the tall ones block sight lines." Claire adjusted a candle by half an inch. Diane moved it back. Nathan saw. He said nothing, but his jaw tightened. The first half hour went smoothly. The pastry came out golden. Wine opened without injury. Richard told a story about getting trapped in a parking garage with a senator, though by the third retelling, the senator had become a governor. Then smoke began leaking from beneath the kitchen door. Claire smelled it first. Oh, damn it. She hurried inside. Nathan followed. A cabinet opened, then another. Metal struck metal. The smoke alarm gave one testing chirp, reconsidered, and stayed quiet. Diane stood. "Claire?" "It's fine," Claire called. "What happened?" "Nothing. That doesn't smell like nothing." Nathan appeared holding a blackened dish towel with tongs. "It touched the burner," he said. "No fire." "Why was a towel on the stove?" Diane asked. Claire's voice came from the kitchen. "Because I put it there, Mom." "Well, don't do that." Frances sipped her wine. "Important guidance," she said. The smoke thinned. Nathan opened a window. February air entered the room, and everyone pretended not to be cold. Claire returned with a fresh tray of appetizers. Her cheeks were red, but the little mushroom pastries were intact. "See," she said, "everything is fine." Miranda took one. "Delicious. You haven't bitten it. I support you on principle." She bit. Her face relaxed. "Also delicious." Claire laughed reluctantly. Dinner was supposed to begin at 7. At 7:10, we remained in the living room. At 7:20, Nathan refilled glasses without commenting on the time. Claire stayed in the kitchen. The smell of garlic and roasted meat drifted through the apartment. Every few minutes, she emerged carrying something, then disappeared again. She had not hired help. She wanted to cook the meal herself, perhaps because her mother believed cooks were people who arrived through side doors. At 7:27, Diane checked her watch. "I'm going to see what she needs." Nathan stepped in front of the kitchen door. "She asked for 10 minutes. She's overwhelmed. She said she has it." Diane looked toward me. "Evelyn, you know your way around a kitchen. Would you go see if you can help her get dinner out?" There it was, not Claire pointing toward a coat rack, her mother pointing toward a kitchen. The room went quiet in the small, awkward way rooms do when no one wants to admit a familiar pattern has become visible. I set down my wine. Before I could answer, Nathan said, "Mom is a guest." He did not raise his voice. That made every word clearer. Diane blinked. "So is everyone. But family helps. She already said she was coming as a guest." "I didn't ask her to wash the floors, Nathan." "No, you told her to fix dinner. I suggested she help your wife." Claire didn't ask, because Claire is trying to do everything herself. The kitchen door opened. Claire stood there holding a large serving bowl against her hip. She had heard enough. I could see it in her face. Diane turned toward her. "Honey, I was only trying to get you some help." "I know. Tell Evelyn what you need." Claire looked at me. The old answer waited between us. "Something easy. Carry the bowl. Toss the salad. Put people in their places and make the evening work." Nathan did not look at me. He looked at Claire. She tightened her grip on the serving bowl. "I don't need anything," she said. Diane frowned. "You're half an hour late. Then everyone can be half an hour hungry." Richard lifted his drink. "I'm managing." No one laughed except Francis, which was enough. Claire carried the bowl to the table. "Dinner is ready." We sat. The candles did block some sight lines. The beef was slightly overcooked at one end and nearly perfect at the other. Claire had forgotten to warm the bread, and the salad contained pears that escaped every fork. It was an excellent dinner. Not because nothing went wrong, because everything that went wrong was allowed to remain the size it actually was. At one point, Diane started to say the sauce needed salt. Richard put his hand over hers. "I like it," he said. "You haven't tasted it. I like the look." Claire heard him and laughed. Nathan sat across from me. He did not seek approval. He passed dishes, asked Anna about her new job, listened to Russell describe renovating a bathroom, and touched Claire's shoulder whenever he moved behind her chair. He was not choosing sides. He was choosing behavior. After dessert, everyone carried something to the kitchen without being assigned. Paul stacked plates badly. Miranda corrected him. Frances wiped crumbs from the table into her palm and deposited them in Diane's empty wine glass. "Accident," she said when I saw. "You're terrifying. I'm invited everywhere." Diane and Richard left first. Diane kissed Claire, told her the dinner was lovely, then advised her to rest more before the next one. At the door, she touched my arm. "I hope you didn't think I was ordering you around. You were." Her hand dropped. "I was trying to help Claire. I know. You could have made things easier. So could you." She stared at me. Behind her, Richard had already put on his coat and opened the door. Diane's voice lowered. "I don't understand why you need everything acknowledged now." That question stayed with me. Not why I needed things changed, why I needed them seen. "I don't need everything acknowledged," I said, "just the things people expect me to keep doing." Her expression cooled. "Well, good night." "Good night, Diane." When the door closed, Frances raised her cane in a small salute and left with Miranda and Russell. Paul and Anna followed. I remained while Nathan collected glasses. "You don't have to stay," Claire said. "I know." I looked at her carefully. "Do you want me to?" She glanced around the apartment. The table was covered with plates. The sink was full. One candle had melted wax onto the rented cloth. "No," she said, "but not because I'm angry." "All right." Nathan came down the hall carrying my coat. "I'll walk you to the car. It's 30 feet. I need air." He held the coat open for me. I slipped my arms into it. "Thank you," I said. His eyes met mine. At the wedding, someone had given me a claim ticket and called me sweetheart. 4 months later, my son stood in his own doorway holding my coat as though the person inside it mattered. It was not enough to repair everything. It was enough for that moment. In the parking lot, Nathan put his hands in his pockets. "You okay?" he asked. "I am. Claire was upset you didn't come early. I know. She said asking you was her way of trying to include you. Did you believe her?" "I think she believed it." That was a better answer than yes or no. "She did well tonight," I said. "She's been planning this for weeks. I could tell. She wanted to prove she could host without you. She did." Nathan smiled slightly. "You don't sound offended. I never wanted to be necessary. That may be the least true thing you've ever said." The cold caught in my throat and I laughed. Fine. I wanted to be necessary. I didn't want necessity to become the price of admission. He nodded. "I should go back up." "Yes." "Thank you for coming. Thank you for inviting me." I drove home with the blue dress smoothed beneath my coat and no tip in my pocket. The next morning, Claire sent a brief message. "Thank you for last night." I answered, "You made a beautiful dinner." The typing bubbles appeared, vanished, appeared again. Finally, she wrote, "I was angry when Nathan said you were a guest." I waited. Another message came. "Not at you." I just didn't know that was something he needed to say. I typed several answers and erased them. Before I chose one, she sent a third. "I think I need to talk to you without him there." I wrote, "All right." She asked if the following Saturday worked. At 11 o'clock, exactly 1 week after the dinner, the knock on my door was so soft I almost missed it. Claire stood on the porch alone. In her hands was the wooden coat check sign from the lodge. For several seconds, I looked at the sign instead of her. It was smaller than I remembered. 12 inches wide, maybe 8 high, dark wood with gold lettering and a little brass stand on the back. At the lodge, it had seemed large enough to identify an entire version of me. "What are you doing with that?" I asked. Claire looked down at it. It was in one of the boxes the venue sent after the wedding. They packed it with our extra menus and some candle holders. I didn't notice until last month. "And you kept it?" "I didn't know what to do with it." "So you brought it to me?" When I picked it up this morning, that seemed less stupid. And now? Now it feels very stupid. I opened the door wider. "Come inside." She stepped into the foyer. Her coat was pale gray, belted at the waist. She looked toward the closet, then leaned the wooden sign against the wall and removed the coat herself. "Where should I put this? The coat or the sign?" The coat. Closet. She hung it beside mine and closed the door. The sign remained near the baseboard facing us. I led her into the kitchen. She sat at the table while I made coffee. Usually I would have asked what she wanted, offered tea, found the cream, set out something sweet. That morning I poured 2 cups and placed one in front of her. "No almond croissants?" she asked. The attempt at humor was so careful I almost missed it. "Nathan told you? He came home covered in powdered sugar." "That was Thanksgiving." "I know. You remembered. I remember things too." The words echoed Nathan so closely that I wondered whether they had discussed them. Claire wrapped both hands around the cup. Her nails were short and unpolished, unusual for her. She wore a navy sweater, jeans, and no jewelry except her wedding ring. "I didn't bring the sign as some dramatic apology prop," she said. "Good, because it's not helping. I brought it because every time I saw it in the closet, I got angry. At me. At first." I sat down. What changed? Nathan said something after the dinner last week. We were cleaning up, and I told him I thought he had embarrassed my mother. He corrected her. "I know that now." "You knew it then." Claire looked into her coffee. "I knew what she said wasn't right, but when he said you were a guest, it felt like he was taking your side in front of everyone. He was taking my side." Her eyes lifted. "Some situations have sides," I said. "The mistake is pretending that makes the people on them permanent enemies." She considered that. "He told me he wasn't defending you against me. He was defending a promise he had made to himself." "What promise?" "That he wasn't going to volunteer your dignity again." The phrase sounded like Nathan, not polished, but true. Claire's mouth tightened. "I hated that," she said. "I imagine. I told him he was making me sound abusive." "Were you?" "No." The answer came quickly. Then she looked toward the foyer. "Not the way I understand that word. You don't have to find the worst possible word before you can admit a smaller one." She pressed her thumb against the rim of the cup. "I was disrespectful. Yes. I was selfish. Yes." Her eyes flashed. "You don't have to enjoy it. I don't. It looks like you do. It looks like I'm not rescuing you from the sentence." She sat back. For a moment, I thought she might leave. I could see her deciding whether the discomfort was evidence that the conversation had become unfair. Then she leaned forward again. "At the wedding," she said, "I knew moving your seat was wrong." I waited. My mother was upset about the Brennans. They've done business with my father for years. She said it would look insulting if they were seated far away. So you insulted me instead. Yes. The word seemed to cost her. I told myself you didn't care about being at the main table. You had said a dozen times that you didn't need special treatment. I meant I didn't need a corsage the size of a shrub. I know. Did you? No. She looked toward the window. The feeder was empty, but the squirrel sat on the railing anyway, maintaining pressure. My mother kept saying the wedding reflected our family, Claire continued. Every table, every flower, every person. The closer it got, the more it felt like everyone was watching to see what I deserved. Who was watching? Her. That answer came without hesitation. Claire rubbed at a mark on the table with one fingertip. If something went wrong, she didn't say the thing went wrong. She said I had allowed it. The flowers weren't late. I had failed to confirm them. The photographer wasn't behind. I hadn't controlled the schedule. The code attendant didn't miss a shuttle. I had left the entrance unattended. So you found someone dependable. I found you. Why? Because you always made things better. That sounds kind. It wasn't. I said nothing. Claire's voice lowered. I knew you were the groom's mother. I knew you should be in the pictures. I knew it would look terrible if people recognized you. But I also knew you'd take the coats correctly and you wouldn't make a scene. There was the truth stripped of stress, flowers, schedules, and mothers. You used my affection for Nathan against me, I said. She flinched. Yes. Outside, the squirrel jumped from the railing to the feeder. Finding nothing, he struck the plastic with one paw. Claire glanced at him. He's aggressive. He has expectations. He'd get along with my mother. I did not laugh, though she almost did. What about the gift table? I asked. She covered her face briefly. I don't know. You did know the attendant had arrived? Yes. You came to relieve me and gave me another assignment. I was panicking. You were thinking clearly enough to find me. I know. Why did Nathan say you admired me? Her hands lowered. Because I do. That is a very strange form of admiration. You're comfortable everywhere. No, I'm not. You look comfortable. You can talk to Richard's business friends and the hotel coordinator and the waiter bringing pepper to an empty plate. You saw that? I saw more than you think. Then why didn't you see me? Her face changed. I did, she said. That's worse. Neither of us touched the coffee. Claire stared at the table. Nathan walks into your house and becomes someone I don't know. He takes off his shoes. He laughs differently. That surprised me. What does that mean? He isn't checking my face to see if something is funny. He already knows. I remembered the well-dressed barn, the bubbles in the water, all the jokes that required Nathan's laugh before Claire allowed her own. You think I judge you, I said. I know you do. Everyone judges everyone. That's comforting. I judged Nathan, too. I judged myself. Judgment is not the same thing as rejection. It feels the same when you're waiting for it. There it was, not an excuse, a small unguarded piece of her. Did you think I would reject you? I asked. I thought you'd tolerate me because he loved me. I addressed 112 invitations. You corrected 74. You kept writing apartment numbers on the wrong line. Claire's mouth moved. I did. And I liked you. She looked up sharply. Not all the time, I added. You're particular. You send emails that sound like subpoenas, and you once made me return sparkling water across town. Bubbles give Aunt Sharon heartburn, indigestion, same family. I smiled despite myself. Claire looked down at her cup again. I liked you too. Past tense? I don't know what we are now. Honest, apparently. That's new. For both of us. She nodded. I owe you an apology, she said. You have been apologizing. No, I've been explaining. The distinction settled into the room. She sat straighter and placed both hands flat on the table, as though she needed to keep them visible. I am sorry I put you at coat check. I'm sorry I knew it would humiliate you and decided keeping things orderly mattered more. I'm sorry I moved your seat because I thought you were the one person I could disappoint without consequences. I'm sorry I cut your dance with Nathan and told him you'd understand when what I meant was that you'd absorb it. Her voice shook on the final word. She stopped, breathed, and continued. And I'm sorry I kept making your reaction the problem afterward. You left quietly. I told everyone you abandoned us because I was embarrassed by what they might figure out. I let the silence remain. Claire wiped beneath one eye with the side of her finger. I don't expect you to say it's fine. It isn't fine. I know. I accept your apology. She closed her eyes. When she opened them, she looked relieved but not absolved. Thank you. That does not mean we go back. To what? To me arriving early, fixing everything and calling it closeness. I don't want that. You may want it next time something burns. She almost smiled. The towel deserved it. I'm serious. So am I. She folded her arms on the table. I don't know what a relationship with you looks like if you're not helping. That is the problem. I know. We can have lunch. We can disagree. You can call me without putting Nathan on the agenda. I can come to your home without being assigned a station. Can I ask you for help? Yes. She frowned. How is that different? I'm allowed to say no. You were always allowed to. No. I was always physically capable. Claire absorbed that. And if you say no, you believe me the first time. That sounds hard. It will save time. A laugh escaped her, wet and unwilling. I stood and carried our cups to the sink. When I turned, she was looking toward the foyer. What should I do with the sign? She asked. You brought it. I thought you might want to break it. With what? I don't know. A hammer. Then I'd have a broken sign and wood on my floor. I told you it felt stupid. You decide what happens to it. She stood, retrieved her coat, and picked up the sign. Outside, she paused beside my trash bins. You kept this for 4 months, I said. I kept thinking I needed it to remind me. Do you? She looked at the gold letters one last time. No. Claire lifted the lid and put the sign inside. She did not smash it or make a ceremony of it. She simply let go. Then she closed the lid. At her car, she turned back. Would you have lunch with me next Saturday? Just us? Yes, no assignments. You can choose the restaurant. That can be your assignment. I'll consider it. She smiled, small and uncertain. It was not affection yet. But for the first time, Claire had come to my door without needing me to carry anything. And when she left, she took responsibility for what she had brought. I chose the Italian restaurant where Nathan and I had celebrated his birthday. Claire noticed. Is this a test? She asked when we sat down. No. Would you tell me if it was? Probably not until dessert. She studied my face, then smiled despite herself. We ordered iced tea. Claire asked for dressing on the side, changed her mind, then changed it back before the waiter finished writing. When he left, she looked embarrassed. I'm trying not to manage everything. The dressing can handle the pressure. I know I'm particular. You're particular about being called particular. I prefer precise. Of course you do. Our conversation stopped and started. Without Nathan between us, we had no familiar rhythm. We discussed her work in pharmaceutical marketing, the lodge manager's apologetic emails, and whether Melissa had actually stolen the wedding slippers or merely failed to return them. She wears them to take out the trash, I said. They had our initials embroidered on them. She says that makes her your authorized representative. That is upsetting on several levels. Carlo brought bread. He recognized me but not Claire. When I introduced her as my daughter-in-law, something passed across her face. Not warmth exactly. Recognition. She buttered a piece of bread and said, I told my mother I apologized. How did that go? She said I shouldn't take responsibility for someone else's overreaction. I assume I'm someone else. She thinks if she admits the wedding was handled badly, it means the whole wedding was bad. Your mother likes complete categories. She called me disloyal. To whom? To her. For apologizing to me? For agreeing that moving your seat was wrong. She said it makes her look like she demanded it. She did demand it. She said she strongly advocated. Precise. Claire gave me a reluctant smile. "What did you say?" I asked. "That I made the decision." That surprised me. You could have blamed her. I have. For 4 months. She did influence you. She didn't put your place card at table 14. No. She didn't point at the coat rack. No. Claire tore her bread in half. I thought apologizing would make me feel better. It may, eventually. Do you? Feel better? She nodded. Yes. Her eyes lifted. Not because you feel worse, I said. Because I don't have to carry your explanation anymore. She sat with that until our food came. Lunch lasted an hour and 12 minutes. We did not leave as friends. We left as 2 women who had told each other the truth and survived the check. At the door, Claire reached for her own coat from the brass hook. "Same time next month?" she asked. "You're scheduling our relationship? I function better with a calendar." "I know. Is that a yes?" "Yes." The second lunch was easier. The third included an argument over whether Nathan's habit of buying 4 bottles of dish soap was sensible preparation or evidence of a disorder. Claire took the sensible side. I told her she had married inventory with eyebrows. She laughed before checking whether I was serious. That was progress. Nathan continued calling on Sundays. He did not announce that the calls contained no requests. He simply asked how I was, then stayed for the answer. Sometimes Claire joined, sometimes she did not. I stopped measuring her absence as punishment. When my furnace made a new noise, I called a repair company instead of Nathan. He was offended. I could have looked at it. "You aren't trained. I fixed the vent. You tightened 2 screws." That's how training begins. You manage medical supplies. Transferable skills. He came over while the technician was there and asked so many questions that the man offered him an application. Afterward, Nathan stayed for coffee. He no longer searched every conversation for the moment I would declare him forgiven. I had forgiven him before either of us knew what that would require. Forgiveness was not the difficult part. The difficult part was letting his behavior become more reliable than my memory. He worked at it. In March, he asked if I would host Easter. "No," I said. "All right." His answer came so easily that I checked the phone to see if the call had dropped. "That's it? You said no." "I did. We can come up with something else." "You're not angry?" "I'm disappointed." The distinction was so simple, I nearly cried. Claire and Nathan hosted brunch at their apartment. They asked everyone to bring a dish. Diane arrived with flowers. No one mentioned it. At the end of April, Claire invited me over to see the wedding album. "I don't have to," I said. "I know. I want you to." The album lay on their coffee table, large and ivory, with their names stamped on the cover. Nathan sat beside me on the harbor fog sectional while Claire remained in the armchair across from us. The photographs were beautiful. Claire at the chapel window, Nathan fastening his cufflinks, Diane buttoning the back of Claire's gown, Richard pretending not to cry. At the ceremony, I appeared in the front row, turned toward Nathan as he watched Claire walk down the aisle. My expression was open, proud, unprepared for what came later. The reception photographs began with the terrace. Claire and her parents, Nathan with the wedding party, Nathan and Claire beside the lake. No groom's mother. The next page moved directly to the fireplace pictures. "They offered to put you into one," Nathan said. I looked at him. "Digitally," he added. "Use a picture from the ceremony and place you beside me." "No." That's what Claire said. I looked at her. She rested her hands in her lap. "We don't get to create a photograph of something we didn't do." The album did not hide the absence. It allowed the empty sequence to remain. A later photograph showed table 14 during the speeches. Leon was talking to Cynthia. Melissa had turned toward the camera. My chair was empty and my untouched scotch remained beside my plate. "I almost removed that one," Claire said. "Why didn't you?" "Because it happened." Nathan leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I hate this album," he said. "No, you don't. I hate part of it." "That's different." He looked at the picture of my empty chair. "I wish you had stayed." Claire glanced at him. He continued before I could answer. I know why you didn't. I'm not asking you to wish it too. That was new. I turned the page. The mother-son dance had not happened, but a photograph near the end showed Nathan alone by the table, reading my toast. His head was lowered. The guests around him were blurred. I didn't know the photographer took that, he said. Claire had included it. On the final page, she and Nathan stood beneath sparklers outside the lodge. They were laughing. Whatever happened before and after, their happiness in that second was real. You should keep the album, I said. We paid enough for it, Claire replied. She made the joke without waiting for Nathan. I laughed. By May, the leaves had returned to the deck, and the squirrel had brought a second squirrel to the feeder. I disliked the second one immediately. It ate upside down and frightened the mourning doves. Nathan called the week before my birthday. I'm having dinner for you Saturday. That sounds less like an invitation than a warning. Dinner. 6 o'clock, our place. How many people? 8. So 12. 8. I made a list. Claire let you? Claire helped me spell Miranda. I'm bringing potatoes. No. Dessert. No. Wine? No. What do I bring? Yourself. That sounds inefficient. You'll cope. He refused every offer of help. When I asked what he was serving, he said food. When I asked whether he had remembered Frances could not manage the stairs to their apartment easily, he said he had arranged for the building elevator to be unlocked. You thought of that? I remember things. The phrase had become a family joke, but he did not laugh when he said it. On Saturday afternoon, I put on a soft gray dress Melissa had chosen with me. She had rejected the blue one. You reclaimed it already, she said. Don't turn it into a uniform. At 5:58, I parked outside Nathan and Claire's building. He was waiting in the lobby, not upstairs checking the oven, not sending me instructions by text, waiting at the entrance. He wore a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows, a dish towel hung over one shoulder, and a smear of something red marked his cuff. What happened to you? I asked. Tomato sauce. You spread it? I improved the boundary. I stopped. He smiled. I remember Dad, too. For a moment, Michael stood with us in the lobby, not as a weapon, not as a judge, but as the man who had once made a stain worse and turned it into a family sentence. Nathan kissed my cheek. Happy birthday, Mom. Thank you. He reached for my coat. I can carry it. I know. I turned and he slipped it from my shoulders. Upstairs, the apartment smelled like garlic, tomatoes, and bread that had gone slightly too far. Melissa and Frances were already there, arguing over whether the wine needed to breathe. Miranda and Russell stood near the window. Paul and Anna were helping Claire arrange appetizers. No Diane. No Richard. Not because Nathan intended a statement, but because the dinner was mine, and he had invited the people I spoke to when I did not need anything. Claire came toward me carrying 2 glasses. 1 wine, 1 water, she said. You can choose. Are there assignments attached? Only the water. It needs to stay hydrated. I took the wine. She kissed my cheek, not the air beside it. Happy birthday, thank you. The table was smaller than the rented one from their formal dinner. The candles were all the same height. The napkins did not match. A pan soaked in the kitchen sink, and the dishwasher was already running. Nathan had done the unglamorous work before I arrived. He had carried chairs from storage, remembered Frances's elevator, picked up wine, burned 1 tray of garlic bread, bought another, and opened the coats closet wide enough for every guest to see. Dinner was good. The sauce needed salt. No one told him until he asked, and when we did, he laughed and passed the shaker. Afterward, he cleared every plate. Sit down, I told him. I'm cleaning. You can do it later. You did it while we sat for 30 years. Not every time. Most times. I don't need a demonstration. He stopped beside my chair. I know. That mattered more than if he had continued. He set the plates on the counter and came back to the table. Claire brought out a small chocolate cake. The icing leaned toward one side, and Happy Birthday Evelyn had been squeezed into a curve because someone misjudged the available space. Nathan decorated it, she said. I can see that. The bakery wrote the words. I can also see that. Everyone sang. Francis sang louder than necessary. Melissa added several unauthorized notes at the end. I blew out the candles and wished for nothing. I had my son beside me, not the version who had never failed, not the boy holding open a grocery store door for strangers, not the groom promising to come back and turning away, the man who had failed, returned, and kept returning. Nathan cut the cake badly. Claire corrected his grip on the knife, then caught herself. "Sorry," she said. "Show me," he replied. She placed her hand lightly over his and guided the blade. No one disappeared into the kitchen. No one's comfort required another person to become invisible. When the first slice was on my plate, Nathan sat in the chair he had saved beside mine. Under the table, his knee bumped mine. "Sorry," he said. "You're taking up too much room. I learned from the best. Your father. You." I looked toward the open closet where my coat hung among the others without a number, a ticket, or a price. "Where do you want me?" I asked. Nathan did not look toward the kitchen or the door. He moved his chair closer. "Right here," he said.